And we do have a quorum, so I'll call the April 24th, 2018 Board of Supervisors meeting to order. We have Bert Rambo here from St. John's Episcopal Church to do our invocation. Would everyone please stand and remain standing for our pledge?
Hope y'all don't mind if I stand aside and include the whole room. Some of y'all know that this past Sunday was Good Shepherd Sunday in a lot of religious traditions, and I'd like to take an opportunity to remind us of, especially those of us who are leaders, of the Good Shepherd that we follow. Jesus said, "I am the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand, who is not the shepherd, does not own the sheep, sees the wolf coming and leaves the sheep and runs away. And the wolf snatches them and scatters them. The hired hand runs away because a hired hand does not care for the sheep. I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. And I lay down my life for the sheep. I have other sheep that do not belong to this fold. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice, so there will be one flock, one shepherd." Let us pray. O God, whose Son Jesus is the good shepherd of your people, grant that when we hear his voice, we may know him who calls us each by name and follow where he leads, who with you and the Holy Spirit lives and reigns, one God forever and ever. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And again, welcome everyone this morning. We have a presentation to make this morning. I'll read a resolution, Wythe County Resolution 2018-09, resolution honoring Dolores E. Poston. Whereas Dolores E. Poston was hired as a county clerk for the Wythe County Administration Office on April the 13th, 1998, and whereas Miss Poston will retire on April the 30th, 2018 after 20 years of outstanding service to Wythe County, and whereas the Wythe County Administration Office and its various departments have greatly benefited from Ms. Poston's professionalism, organizational skills, and thoughtfulness during her years of service. And whereas Ms. Poston assisted in several accounting software upgrades and served as backup for the payroll clerk on numerous occasions. Therefore, be it resolved, the Wythe County Board of Supervisors, assembled in regular session in Wytheville, Virginia, this 24th day of April 2018, does hereby express its sincere appreciation to Ms. Poston for her dedicated service and does convey its best wishes to her and her family for continued success, happiness, and good health for years to come. And be it further resolved that the Wythe County Board of Supervisors does hereby direct that this resolution be incorporated into official minutes of this board and that a framed copy be given to Dolores E. Poston as a token of her high regards, adopted this 24th day of April 2018. I entertain a motion to approve. Have a second?
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, may I have the honor of presenting this to Ms. Poston?
Yes, you may.
I have, Ms. Poston, you're going to have to come forward. I've had the pleasure of working with Ms. Poston here since 2000. I had the pleasure of working with Ms. Poston prior to that in private employment. Prior to that, she preceded me in coming to the county. But she has done a tremendous job for us. Any bill we want to know right now about, I can walk over and I know where it is in the file cabinet. If I'm looking for one 2 years back, I know exactly where it is upstairs. She's done an excellent job, great organizational skills. You will be missed.
Thank you.
Okay, you got some other things. Presenter here.
Presented to Dolores Poston in appreciation of 20 years of service, 1998 to 2018. Watch together with it.
Thank you, Dolores. We appreciate all the things you've done. Thank you.
Chairman, if
Yes.
I might also, before you go into citizens' time, we have several members of our staff here. Just take the opportunity to introduce all of them that are here, and then I've got one at the end. Let's say your name if you'll stand up. David Southers, our IT coordinator. Caleb Koch, our IT assistant. In the back, Rhonda Vaught from the building inspection. Ann Wynn from the water department. Michelle Castle, planning commission. Mr. Grant. Ms. Casey Jensen. And the last I'd like to introduce, Mr. Blake Stowers, if you will come up. Y'all know Bill, I'm skipping over Bill. You don't count. Personnel committee had interviews a couple months ago, a month or so ago. Blake Stowers is our new public information officer. I just want to take the opportunity to let Blake introduce himself to you, and then he's got to go upstairs and start learning how to video record all of the board meetings. So, Blake, if you'll introduce yourself to us.
I'm Blake Stowers. I'm from Rocky Gap, Virginia. I attended Emory and Henry College, and I appreciate the opportunity to work for you.
Well, congratulations on your new job, and I look forward, and the whole board look forward to working with you in the future. And I will give you a little information. I was at a VACO Board of Directors meeting this weekend, and they're going to start, VACO's going to start a program where all the PIOs across the state can come together and share ideas about getting information out in better ways to inform all the citizens of the state of what's going on in each county. So hopefully, that will be some good training for you. And I also asked them to incorporate some grant writing training in that too.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Be great.
Thank you.
Appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
And thank all the staff that's present here. Thank you for the job y'all do. Y'all do a terrific job for us. Okay, moving on into our citizens' time. Ms. Davis, give your name and your address, please.
Okay, my name is Jamie Davis. I live in Ivanhoe, Virginia, 671 Painters Hill Road, Ivanhoe, Virginia. What I'm coming to you about is there's a pig lot beside my house that is causing ruckus. And there's it's in a flood zone. I live right in the middle of Ivanhoe. It has flooded numerous times in my yard. I've been to the agriculture department. They won't do nothing. I need y'all to come up with the zoning for this. My kids can't even play out in the yard. And it's getting bad. I have a map for you. The X shows my house. The circle shows where the pig lot is. I have pictures. The pig lot the pig poop has been on my vehicles. It's just a big, huge mess. It's a small lot, and it's a lot of pigs in it. I have pictures of pigs. It looks bad. It looks very, very bad. It floods all the time. When it floods, it washes in my yard. This picture I'm getting ready to show you is a pond, the pig pond. It is 72 feet from my front door. The other pictures I'm giving you is where it has landed on my vehicles, where it has been on my vehicles. There is numerous pigs in this. This branch runs into the New River New River, which you know feeds Clayton Lake. There needs to be zoning for this. You can't even smell. I mean, the smell is just pure awful, especially when it gets warmer. I need zoning to be done. I mean, if you had grandchildren or children, would you want them to play outside with the smell? I mean, makes me sick. I have a 19-month-old that is on 2 inhalers. I don't know if it's the cause of this or what. I also have a 17-year-old getting ready to graduate from Fort Chisholm High School, and a 12-year-old. We can't even stand to be outside. We have neighbors. We have a lawyer involved in this that causes the nuisance smell. He said we could get them on the nuisance smell. But I need zoning done in this area. There needs to be something done.
Well, Ms. Davis, we don't have zoning in the county anymore, but we'll look into your...
The sound is awful. People can't even sleep at night. We're going in front of a judge. As soon as our lawyer, we've talked to residents around our area, and several people are going to court with us over this.
Mr. Barrett, I mean, I know you give us this letter that come from the Department of Agriculture, and I read their findings. Have we sent anybody over to investigate this?
Mr. Vaughn has been involved with it. The situation's been ongoing for quite some time. Building official, even a couple of years ago, was looking at several issues over in that area. We are familiar with the problem, trying to involve agricultural consumer services or anything to see if there's any enforcement ideas or things they can have, like we talked about before with the feedlot and Speedwell was one of the only options that we had.
But this is in a flood zone. This is in a flood zone. And when it floods, I have pictures of it flooding badly. These were ones I could come up with. Here's
Did the people from the soil and water,
the
did they
agriculture people.
come and talk to you?
Yes, they
Did
gave
you
me a
show
letter.
them these pictures?
Yes. They said there's nothing they can do because of something, it's weather related. There's like a slide, pretty much, where they can't do nothing.
Ms. Davis,
This is-
how many hogs do they have on the lot?
Anywhere from 15 to 30. The pallet you see is from the pig lot in the pictures.
Let me ask you a question here. This round circle you got here, this property here is what the county sold about two or 3 years ago.
Yes. Yes, in 2015, May
And
of.
where you got this round circle, whose property is that?
The circle, it's Doug and Lou Davis's.
No, not the one that's got the circle on, that ain't theirs, is it?
Yes, that's theirs. That's where the pond is. The X is my house.
So how far does her land go back there, just the middle of that branch?
Just right past. Well, she has 2 lots. The first 2 lots are, these right
Whose
here.
property is that right there?
That is Doug and Lou Davis's right here.
Okay.
And Miss Price lives in
must have been
Knoxville,
during
and
that flood last Sunday.
she don't want to have nothing to do with this.
What did she do?
It's her property. They have taken over her property.
Oh, they got the pigs on her property.
Yes. And there's an old abandoned house that has been burnt. They have caught on fire, has burnt a little bit. Even the fire department had a problem getting into the house because of the pig lots.
Is that old house a danger?
Yes.
Ms. Davis, let us investigate this and see what we can come up with, a solution to take care of this problem. Does she have the letter?
I
this
do.
letter?
I do. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis.
You need your pictures back.
Yes, please, thank you.
Mr. Cox, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. Most of you know why I'm here. Pope Road is worse and worse, and I just want to find out when our turn is coming on that 6-year plan, because we've been on it forever. I mean, I moved down there in 2004, and it was on a 6-year plan. Ain't got nothing yet, and to top it off, the bridge washed out about 3 years ago. Said it'd be a year before they started, 2 years it'd be completed. Ain't done nothing yet. So what I'd like to know is, when is our turn to get that road blacktopped?
Mr. Cox, I don't have the 6-year plan in front of me. Maybe Mr. Barr can pull it up there and remind us of the dates.
I am looking at it right now, and it appears that it's in the 2020-21 timeframe is when the funding becomes available.
2021. Well,
2020, 2021,
And that'd be fiscal year, correct?
correct.
So it'd be not this July, but
The next,
next July.
a year from this
Is that for the
July.
bridge or is that just for the road?
Just
That's for the road.
the road.
We haven't had any luck of getting any progress as far as VDOT and the state about the bridge, as far as I know.
If,
I don't know that they've ever, I didn't think they'd ever told us they were gonna rebuild it. I don't agree with it, but
Yeah, I don't agree with it either.
No.
I think it's a necessity.
No, it is, yeah, and it throws a burden on a lot of people.
Oh, I agree.
And the other part of the road, you know, that's not blacktopped, it's rough to get around it. And to pass anybody on sections there, I mean, you just gotta stop. And you just gotta give it to that bus driver that she ain't got in that ditch already.
How about the culverts, Mr. Cox? Did they ever come over and clean them out?
Never did, but that's something else that's gotta be done. The road scraper man, Mr. Pack, you gotta give it to him. He knows how to run that grader. The ones in front of my house is completely stopped up, and he took that blade and went over in there and pushed them right out. And I got a shovel, pulled it out of the pipe, and he cleaned them out real good. Now, he knows how to run that grader, but they do need a couple more gotta be cleaned out he can't get to. So, if they were cleaned out, like Mr. Hale said, it'd cut down a lot of flow coming down through there to wash the road away. And that's in front of my house where that valley comes down through there. Everything builds up, so it washes the road away. But 2021, I guess I'll be around by then. I hope.
Mr. Baird, is there an amount listed on that? I remember hearing it, but I can't.
There is, there's not a very clear copy I'm looking at, it's either $360,000 or $380,000. I think it's $380,000. One bit of good news that may help out in this situation, two of the roads that are ahead of their project are Pump Holler Road, which is one we just requested for the recreational access. So if that would happen, that would free up $160,000 on our 6-year plan, which would move projects up. And the other one on there is the continued of Major Graham Road, which we've been applying for the high volume road on it, which the increase this year because of additional funds, they went from $300,000 to $500,000. So we upped our application to the $500,000. So if that gets done quicker, that could speed up the process because that would come from funds other than 6-year money. And the Major Graham Road was $644,000, I believe. So that would free up that money. So it's feasible that if those are
It could be
done
moved up.
money could move forward earlier in the process.
Mr. Baird, who sets the priority list on that?
The Board of Supervisors sets the priority list.
You might have to explain, I think Mr. Cox would like to hear it. That new money, the high volume, is different pot that we've never been able to get into before. And what was supposed to happen in bookkeeping was that 82,500 that was already in place for Major Graham automatically went up the list. And then when the 300,000 come, that moved it up the list. And if this 500 becomes a reality, that really has an impact on the list of another about 300,000, wouldn't you say, Mr. Baer? It won't, well, it won't give you a full impact of 500, but it'll at least be 300. And Major Graham is being done with pavement instead of surface and chips. But I had a question. I've been told all week, because we've had no relief, they said all the equipment was at Pope Road. So what did they do over there this week?
Well, we just got it scraped. That's all we've seen for a while, but
They didn't have anybody over there but the motor grader since the flood last Sunday?
yeah, that's when it happened.
And all the problem was on the hill up there, I guess, where it
And
washed
down in
out.
front of my house where the culverts come out there. But, as far as the blacktopping road, it's less than 2 miles to join them together, less than 2 miles.
It's 2 bad miles though. I mean, it's bad road there now.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna be a routine of, if there was a road there now, it wouldn't be much blacktop it, but that road's gotta have major improvement before you blacktop it.
Oh, yeah, it's gotta be
You don't
wide
need a
and ditches.
12-foot blacktop
Yeah.
up through there. Mr. Barrett, we'd requested getting a district engineer down here. If we can get him down here, let's add that road to his visit. It's from the end of pavement over there. It's that gap that y'all have all heard about. It's over a major ridge. It's in totally inadequate drainage is what the real problem is.
Yeah.
It's not the terrain, it's not drained.
Yeah, Mr.
Man.
Cox, I have asked Mr. Byer to set up a meeting with me and Mr. Hill with the district engineer, and we'll put the bridge on our list too, to talk to him about that
Yeah.
and other things.
Well, I understand they're gonna start building bridges down here at Rural Retreat. It's in the paper this week.
That's just a contractor that does, Crossroads Bridge is their name. They have just, built a lot next to the interstate for their equipment and all of that.
Okay. I know something about bridges. But anyway, there's like 3 more residents on Pope right now that's moved in there. And you know, as far as high volume traffic, it ain't the high volume, but it's a matter of getting through. And I did blacktop my driveway, but then my taxes went up 22% too. So I paid for that. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cox.
Mr. Cox, I believe Mr. Russell's supposed to be here today, isn't he?
Yes, sir.
Do what, Mr. Hale?
Corey, sorry.
That was me. Mr. Russell is supposed to be here today.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to talk to him too.
He will be here probably around 9:45 or so.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cox. Ms. Myers?
Yes, just 2 quick things. I happened to be at George Wythe High School on Saturday for most of the day, and in one of the lavatories, the water is running, not drip, drip, really running. So we told the custodian that was on hand, and he said he has turned it in several times over the past several months, and they keep saying because the building's going to be renovated, that there's no reason to fix it, which is absolutely absurd. It's our money, it's our water resource, and so on. And if there's one place in that building that it's doing that, you know it happens to be more. So I called the principal yesterday and alerted him and asked him if he would look into it, but it would probably help if you guys would send a letter to the school board and ask them to make an assessment of the schools and the water, and if there is a problem, to fix it.
Okay.
Okay, that's one. The other one was on Sunday, the Wythe County Remote Control Flyers did a demonstration over in Rural Retreat, and we had a multitude of people, adults and children, come for this demonstration, questions and answers. They did a wonderful, wonderful job. This group is They are part of the Academy of Model Aeronautics. They all carry insurance and so on. They are registered pilots with the FAA. For 10 years, they were over at Progress Park. For some reason, they got booted out of Progress Park. These people are a resource. We need things to engage our youth here. The kids are interested in this. It requires technology and engineering, building, utilizing this resource. There's national magazines for this stuff. We have a place that they could go. We're not using it. It's vacant land. How about considering letting them come back here? They draw people from all over, and why have them going elsewhere with their hobby instead of encouraging the hobby here and bringing people here that will buy gas, will eat here, perhaps stay overnight, and so on and so forth. So how about you guys looking into this and letting these guys come back to Progress Park and utilize it for their hobby?
Well, Stephen, you remember, I can't remember exactly all the things why they couldn't use Progress Park, but the industry was one aspect of it. One of them going out of control and going into one of the buildings out there, that was the main reason, and the power lines and stuff.
They did have concerns at one, I believe, that landed on top of a building at one of the factories out there, and some complaints from some of the business out there. So that was part of it. We now have lease for the hay on the property they were on, which would have to be amended in the process to do it. But there were several reasons that were looked at back then.
And, we told them they could use the fairgrounds, and did they have a problem with the fairgrounds?
Not that I know of, no. Not that I know of. But still, look into it. The hay can still grow. They don't need a big space as far as ground use and so on. And
I
there's
believe the
certainly,
industry was the biggest factor in it.
there were complaints from,
Yes.
from whatever. Well, perhaps we could look into it again for tourism and to get stuff for the kids to do here. It would be a good option. Okay, please.
Mr. Mayor, I will tell you that I actually ran into the maintenance guy yesterday afternoon, and apparently he was over there addressing that leak.
Good.
I just
Great.
happened to talk to him in the hallways.
Thank you.
Okay, that's everyone that signed up for citizens' time, but I will give the opportunity for anybody else that would like to speak during citizens' time. Hearing none, I'll close citizens' time. Next item on our agenda is payment of invoices. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion.
Have a second.
Second.
Have a motion second to pay the invoices. Any invoice any board member would like to pull out or discuss? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Morney?
Aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Next item is our minutes of our previous meetings of April 10th, 12th, and 16th of 2018. I entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Have a second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any corrections or changes need to be made to the minutes? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Bob?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Next item is appointments. I think Mr. Hale has an appointment for the Recreation Committee from the Fort Chisholm District.
Yes, sir. This is not easy, as you know, to get people that have passion and want to work on these committees, but I've talked to someone that's been active in recreation for about 5 or 6 years now. I proposed the name of Crystal Glossop. You all know her from working at Lowe's and now at Williams, whatever Williams Supply's name is today. They've changed names, but she's been a soccer official. That's what I asked Mr. Bear about, if being an official that does refereeing for a pittance price, if that kept somebody from being on the advisory committee. So that's the nomination.
have a second on Mr. Hill's recommendation, nomination?
Okay.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? So nominated. Next one is Ms. Lawson that sent me a letter resigning from the Mount Rogers Mountain Community Action Program, Mountain Cap, to serve on to be taken off that board. Mr. Lester has generally agreed to serve on that board. I'll entertain a motion to approve. Mr. Lester,
I'll make that motion.
I have a second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you, Mr. Lester.
Yeah, thank you a bunch.
We have some appointments coming up in June. Wythe County Rescue Squad Board. Mr. Jackson's term is up on the DSS board. She can serve another term, can't she?
I believe so, yes, sir.
Okay, I'll check with her at our next meeting.
Nancy Jackson.
Yeah, Nancy Jackson.
I'll talk to her.
Mount Rogers Planning District Commission, William Dixon. That's a 4-year term. Mr. Byers' appointment need to be reappointed in June to New River Regional Water Authority. And the Recreation Commission has 2.
Mr. Chairman, I just have asked staff to go ahead and keep that on the agenda so we can be looking at those in advance and be talking to the people that may serve again or be talking to new individuals. So it's just informational purposes at this time unless there's any recommendation.
And we have 2 for the Wythe County Rescue Squad Board of Directors. We also have Wytheville Community College 4-year term, Jerry Hurt, and it is my understanding that he said that he did not want to serve another term. So we need to get the word out there and get nominations for the college board. Okay, any other thing, Mr. Burr, as far as nominations?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman, that's all.
Any?
I've got a comment
Yes.
about nominations. Mr. Chairman, if we could convey to the Apex Authority that they have a recommendation by next meeting. They need that position filled, and they've had a lot of time and a lot of deliberation. I think we need to set a timeline.
I agree, and Mr. Burr, if you'll come. Mr. Miller?
That's actually what I was getting ready to ask. They make the recommendation for that. So if we have names of people that are interested, we.
Well, the board
pass it to them
appoints.
first.
I mean, we'll ask them for a recommendation, but that not mean that they will get their recommendation. Mr. Byers, anything else under old business?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman, not aware of anything else.
Okay, we'll go on to reports. Our treasurer, Ms. Gwen. Morning, Lori.
Hope everyone's well and happy today. It's a good day for ducks if you're outside. Okay, you have your March 2018 financial statement there in front of you, and the consolidated account contains a balance of $66,137,137, and of that balance in the general fund, the balance is $40,852,024. Kind of a general update with our office. We're just continuing collections. Our delinquent notices were received back into the county earlier this month. They've actually been back about 2 weeks now, I guess, maybe just a little bit over that. So you'll see your financials change quite a bit for next month because we are collecting that. We are continuing to increase our delinquent collections on personal property by putting DMV holds on people that owe prior year taxes. So far, we have created a lot of discussion about that, and it has proven the results that I was wanting it to. So we are getting a lot of those prior year taxes cleaned up at this point on the personal property side. I'll be working with Mr. Southers actually next week. April 30th is on Monday, so I'm hoping Tuesday, May the 1st, we will get holds put on at DMV for anyone that owes 2017 taxes. So that will start forcing people to come in and pay on those as well. But that's kind of where we are in the office. I have had a personnel change. I promoted an employee up to my bookkeeper position, so I do have an opening in my office for a position that is out front. So in the coming month or so, I'll have another new hire in my office. So we've had a lot of changes personnel-wise in there, but that's sort of what's happening for us in the treasurer's office. So any questions? I knew you would.
I'd like to come and talk to you. You know, we're struggling with a budget. And if I look at revenue streams, which you know that I don't want to burden with real estate, if you go back, how hard is it for you to go back and actually put real numbers with other revenue streams? The economy seems to be booming at all of our exits, but I don't see any revenue increases of food and the transit tax.
Right.
I also don't see an adequate return from the trailer parks that we just had a guy in, not trailer parks, excuse me, mobile home,
RV parks.
RV parks. We just had a guy here that is turning people away every day. If they're not there by 5 o'clock, they miss out and they're moving on. So he's adding additional spaces. And I think I understand the ordinance. If they can stay for 30 days, Mr. Barry, and we collect taxes.
Correct.
And he threw out a number of what his park only had collected in roughly 11 years. That's a voluntary tax. They send in whatever they want to, whatever's believable if they want to do it that way. At the end of that 30-day period, if that RV stays on site, it should show up in our personal property tax. Some of these things that never leave Wythe County have a new sale value of $300,000 and $400,000, and if they don't show up, they're not paying taxes anywhere.
Right.
They're not in North Carolina. They're not in Ohio. They're here. So if they're not paying taxes here, if they're paying taxes at home because of title, that doesn't comply with our state statute that they're supposed to pay here because they're here.
Right. And on the personal property tax, I will say, we're based on what is here January 1. So
know that.
depending, a lot of the, if these RVs are still here the first of the year, as far as those being assessed, that's not in my court. That would be on the Commissioner of Revenue side as far as those being assessed. So I'm not sure how they determine those, if they go out and physically evaluate these campgrounds, things like that, RV parks. I'm not sure how they handle that. That one is in a different office from what I am, but I do understand what you're saying, but it's going to depend on if they were still here at that time and how those are assessed at the
The
time.
statute prohibits your constitutional officer or office from doing a check on these. Mr. Reeves and I, several years ago, took a list to the other office that people that weren't paying. For 4 years, under a former commissioner, I took photographs and lists of people that keep their equipment here all year, didn't pay any state taxes, had their equipment and vehicles from out of state, been here for years. That's revenue we could really use right now.
Right.
It's a bigger number than anybody wants to give credit for.
Yeah.
So I do.
Every little bit makes a difference, and that's kind of even going back on our collections for personal property. You know, if we don't, I feel like for me and my office staff, if we don't put forth the effort to collect those, we're not fulfilling the duties of what we're there for fully. So, you know, I'm trying to, I call it clean up, but essentially that's what it is. I'm just trying to get a lot of those back years taken care of, get those, you know, even off the books in the courts, because the majority we have judgments on. So those judgments last 10 to 20 years, depending on which court they're filed in. But most are also in circuits, so, you know, we can collect on them up to 20 years beyond the time that they were issued. And some you can actually, depending on when the judgment was taken, you're looking at up to 25 years that you can collect on that.
Well, I always look at your numbers, and there's a staggering amount of number out there on people that you've taken action, they haven't paid.
Right.
And it would sure help us when we're deliberating.
Without a doubt, because
budget.
the tax increase affects every one of us. You
Right.
know, it not only affects everyone else outside of these doors, it affects us too. We have to pay that as well. And sometimes it's not entirely viewed that way, that we get the brunt of that too.
Well, I've said this before, but voluntary tax didn't work well for the Romans. It didn't work for the king unless they had some authority to back it up and collect it. And we can't survive on voluntary tax. Thank you, ma'am.
You're welcome.
And I might refer you all to page 140 and 141 of your board package. Has 5 years collections of meals, taxes, and the transient lodging taxes in it. And in the current upcoming budget year, we have recommended about a 12% increase in the lodging taxes based on the increases that we're currently seeing.
But you got them in there, but while you got them, how much have they changed in 5 years?
In 2013, the meals tax was $697,000. In 2017, it was $785,000. So
Is that actual or?
that's actual. That's actual.
Okay.
And this year, we're at, through 9 months, we're at 73% of our budget, so we should be at 75%. So we're pretty close on it.
Do we get any lodging tax from the hotels in town of Wythe,
No.
or town gets all that?
Ours entirely comes from the motels out in the county and the RV parks, campgrounds he's talking about. Our transient occupancy taxes have, it was $165,000 in 2013. It was $187,600 last year.
And which one of them at 60% has to go towards tourism?
The
Lodging.
transient lodging
Lodging.
tax, occupancy tax.
Well, there's real money there, and there's no viable audit has ever gone on those taxes. It's just whatever they choose to send.
And Mr. Vaught, to follow up on you, with both towns, they have their own meals and lodging tax base rate. So unfortunately, you know, we talk about tourism and pulling people in. If they stay and eat here in the town of Wytheville,
We don't get any.
we're not really benefiting. We do have them in our community, but we're not getting that tax money.
And the
Other than
rate's high.
percentage of sales tax, you know, if they go to Walmart or somewhere to buy something. But, you know, as far as lodging and meals, we're not getting, you know, any money off of that.
And they charge 7% and we're capped at 4%.
Yeah.
So,
Very unfair.
and I've been working on that too, so, with no proof.
Well, thank you for your efforts. Any other
We'll
questions?
see what happens this upcoming year.
Yeah.
While Ms. Gwynn's up here, I will mention Ms. Gwynn, Mr. Grant, myself, Keith Dunnigan, and the Deputy Commonwealth Attorney met last
Friday.
Friday. There is currently, from the district court judge, $7 million in unpaid fines and court costs out there that everyone is interested, instead of just sending it to the state and trying to collect it through the state methods, looking at trying to get a collection agency. We've got a draft agreement from a collection agency that's come in here. The sheriff's interested in working with it. Mr. Saliba is interested in working with it, for us to look at getting the service of collection agency to try to collect those outstanding fines and forfeitures. So, I just wanted to mention that. We are in the process of it. We'll probably have to put out a quick RFP to get the services out there, but we seem like all players are on board to try to move forward and collect some of that money.
What, they charge a standard 25% or?
I haven't read the details of
They can go
it.
as high as 35%.
Can you make that part of the negotiation, or do they fall under professional services?
No, it can be part of the agreement with them.
They don't fall under professional services?
They are not considered professional services, no.
So they're unprofessional services?
Okay.
If you so choose.
Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Gwynn? Other questions? Not, thank the
Thank
Lord.
you.
I don't see Ms. Barker here from the Commissioner of Revenue's office, and don't see the sheriff. Major Klein, do you have anything from the sheriff's office?
That's right.
Thank you. Water Committee report. Mr. Horny?
The Water Committee met on April 17, 2018, and makes the following recommendations. First is to approve amendment number 3 for the Exit 24 wastewater project at a cost not to exceed $11,000.
Come from committee, it doesn't need a second. Any questions or discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this is for completion of the operation and management, maintenance manuals for the center that were not included in the EJCDC documents.
Does that include commissioning, startup?
That's part of the contract one, but they need to be there. Yes, they will be developed as part of that process. And also our final disbursement from DEQ is dependent on having the manuals in hand.
And that's with Thrasher?
Yeah, yes, Thrasher's.
When's the plant gonna come online?
Well, we're looking at next week, starting to get that thing running once we get the Circle K hooked up. They were going to try to get their line finished on their property this week, but of course, weather might slow them up. There's a lot of hand digging because they have utilities, control lines and things out with pumps. So I'm expecting next week-ish to start turning everything on down there.
Do you feel fairly confident that it's gonna supply enough water to make the package plant happy?
Yeah, we'll be doing a couple thousand a day from up there, and the plant, remember we did it in stages and started off at 10 to 20K, so we should be okay.
Thank
We
you.
have the few residences up there, half dozen, 15 or so to hook up, as well as Pure Country, and their little grill is going to start what we'll be hooking into.
Any other questions? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Vaught?
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Next item.
Second one is to provide a 90-day waiver on the residential connection fee for the Exit 24 wastewater project. Residents will still be responsible for the capacity fee.
Okay, again, come from committee, it doesn't need a second. Any questions or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horny?
Aye.
Aye.
The chair votes aye. Is that all from the Water Committee?
I think that's all we had.
Okay, Budget Committee?
The Budget Committee met on April 19, 2018, and made the following recommendation: to increase the local choice key advantage HDHP health insurance employer share to the minimum requirement.
Okay, come from committee, it doesn't need a second. Any questions or discussion?
Exactly what this means to our employees.
Basically, what it means, if you'll look at page 77 of your package, the employer had to put $1 more towards the plan than what you all had previously agreed to, which was $658 to meet the required minimums from the local choice, had to give $659. So, and any employee paying on a dual plan under the high deductible health care plan would be paying $1 less a month on it. On the family plan, we had to increase it by $17 to meet the minimum on it. So it just means if anyone has the family high deductible health care plan, they would be paying $17 less. It is a formula calculation by them. When we entered the numbers in that you all had previously voted on, and after having several conversations with them, and I'm still in disagreement with their formula calculation, how they do it, but this was, according to them, their minimum requirement. I think the numbers we had previously met it, but they would not accept that. Minimal impact because we have very few individuals taking the high deductible health care plan.
Any more questions? Hear none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Ball?
Aye.
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 And the chair votes aye. Anything else from the Budget Committee? Hear none, County Administrator's report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first thing is just Mr. Music has done an update to the Lead Mines Rescue Squad vehicle lease agreement to remove old vehicles that they no longer have and to update to add the new vehicles. Just recommend a approving of this lease agreement.
Okay.
Basically, the only thing that's changed.
That's all that's changed, yes, sir.
Okay, you heard recommendation from staff to entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Have a second.
Second.
Have a motion and second. Any discussion or questions?
I'd like to understand the term lease agreement.
Yes. When we moved all of the vehicles into the county's name a couple years ago, we put a lease agreement to them for no charge for the vehicles, and then we put the vehicle use policy as part of that as well. This is just updating the vehicles on that lease agreement.
The county has the titles. We lease them back to them for usage. Is that an insurance move, or why did we do that?
Yes, that was, the vehicles were taken over 3 or 4 years
Yeah.
ago for insurance purposes. That was the reason why.
Same thing apply to fire departments?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Hear none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horny?
Aye.
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 And the chair votes aye. Next item.
Next item is informational purposes. It is a copy of the certificate to operate the Exit 24 wastewater treatment plant that Mr. Vaughn was just addressing. And the third item is for informational purposes also, with our clerk of circuit court retiring. Have an auditor's report and statement of asset liabilities indicating that everything is clear over there and moved over to Ms. Akers in the interim during this time frame. And that's all the items that I have, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, county attorney's report. Mr. Farley?
I do not have anything to report at this time.
Okay, Board of Supervisors report. Black Creek District, Mr. Ball?
I had several calls about the robocall, about the public hearings and the refinancing of the bonds and the noise ordinance. People didn't understand what it was about, and one person complained that the system we had couldn't pronounce the county name correctly, so I don't know if there's anything we can do to address that. But that's it.
Okay, West Whipple,
Nothing at this time.
East Whipple,
Nothing at this time.
Ledgemont District, Mr. McRoberts.
Say, the only thing I have is I'd like to say thank you to VDOT and to Sheriff's Department for picking up trash down the spur over there on Old School Road, on Chevy School Road. They did a great job.
And my apologies, Mr. Hale, Fort Chiswell District. I skipped you.
That's all right. We'll take up anything during Mr. Russell's time.
Okay. Speedwell District.
I would agree with Mr. Hale.
Okay. At large, I've already reported some on the VACO Board of Directors meeting this past weekend about the PIO's training and county administrators' proposed training and conferences in the upcoming year. We met in King and Queen County. It was interesting to go to King and Queen. We stayed in another county because King and Queen don't have a hotel in their county. They have 7,000 residents. They've gained 500 in the last 20 years. It's mostly farmland. It's a nice place. I mean, beautiful. I will inform the board next year, as president of VACO, in the upcoming year, we will be hosting the May, it'll probably be in May, hadn't made a decision yet, Board of Directors meeting here in Wythe County. And I look forward to doing that and showing several of the supervisors all over the state what we have to offer here in Wythe County. They'll be here the entire weekend. They'll come in on Friday and depart on Sunday. And most of the things we'll have, the board of directors meeting will be Saturday morning, and then a tour of the county and whatever we can come up with after that. But I hope everybody can come out and welcome our fellow supervisors from all over the state and make Wythe County proud. Okay, that's all that I have. We'll move into new business. Consent calendar. Entertain a motion to approve. Have a second.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any question or discussion on any item on the consent calendar? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Bob?
Aye.
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Next item is the Virginia Department of Transportation. Mr. Russell, come on up. Good morning. Thank you for coming. Okay, I'll let you give any updates or anything you'd like to discuss before I turn the board loose on you.
Get y'all to pass these across. I'll give an update on some of the current projects that we've got going on. Of course, we've got this extender road, the connector road up here at the college, and it's supposed to be completed in November of this year. The merging lane down here at Fort Chiswell from 77 north onto 81 south, that is supposed to have a completion date of September of this year. And the culvert replacement project we have going on in Millers Creek, they're finishing it up now, and it's supposed to be completed the early part of May. One other upcoming project, it's 77 south, I-81 interchange. The merging lane, we're going to extend it all the way down to the exit 73 where you get off to go into Wytheville. That way, as you come off 77 south from West Virginia, you don't have to get over, if you're wanting to get off Wytheville, you don't have to merge twice. You'll be able to continue on that lane. So that's a highway safety improvement project we applied for. We got the money for that. So that is going to go out to bid in August. So that's all the project updates that I have. So had y'all passed out, we're getting ready to come into the secondary 6-year program, and I wanted to give y'all an update kind of the funding. discuss with y'all potential dates for the public hearing. There's 2 sheets. Neither one are the final copies. These are kindly drafts, but the single sheet is one I put together. It has the current projects on the left, the project estimates, and the previous money that's been applied to the project in the next column. And then it shows the next 6 years, the additional money to fully fund the projects. That's kind of where we're at on our current 6-year plan. So at the end of the day, with the allocations we're given and anticipating this year, we need to have, I'd have to add those together, but the $560,000 and the $600,000 at the bottom, total those up. That is the amount of money we have to program towards new projects.
Okay, Mr. Russell, we'll go down the line. We'll start with Mr. Vaught. Do you have anything for Mr. Russell?
Thank you for addressing A-Frame Drive. They were very pleased and how quick you guys got there. And I'm not sure if you had anything to do with it, but apparently they cut some trees off right away. And the guy said he came home and said it's still not paved, it's still gravel, but wide and smooth. So thank you for that.
All right.
Mr. Lester?
Thank you for the job you're doing.
Thank you.
Ms. Lawson?
I don't have anything, but thank you.
Mr. Hale?
Jeff, what's going on with that bridge up there at Miller Street?
You talking about the alignment?
The lack of alignment?
Well, that, I would agree, Joe. I went up there and looked, and it could have been lined up better, but pretty well what's there, they're not going to redo it.
Well, I hope not.
So it could have been, the pipes could have been pulled up a hill a little bit better on the far end, so. But what's there is there. The good news is, normally if we do a real rustic road, we have a 16-foot wide surface. Okay, the width of the structure that's there now is 27 foot. So we do have plenty of room that, even though the alignment isn't exactly perfect, you put a 16-foot road across a 27-foot wide structure, you still have room that you can make a decent curve out of it. So we do have plenty of width on the structure.
Obviously, you got too much talking by the contractor up there.
Too much what?
Too much conversation with the contractor and the people that live and travel that road. Have they taken the guardrails off of it?
There was never guardrails on it.
Okay, it's a safety hazard in that when you're on a gravel road, and that will be a gravel road for at least till sometime in the mid-20s, and that would take another action to extend the 6-year plan beyond where it is now, because it ends at Heather Road, which is 100 yards from the structure. But if you're running on a gravel road, and with no more base than we've got between those pipes and that concrete slab, that slab's going to be iced all winter. And with the curb happening on the structure, guess where those cars are going to end up coming down the creek? They're going to be piled up right about where that filter was installed. So this is a Bristol design, right? Y'all had no hands in it. You need to wash your hands of that job. Can you put Jersey curb barriers on that thing with your 27 feet, so these cars have to stay on that concrete and can't go over the edge? That's about a 6-foot drop off of both sides. The word up there from the contractor now is that y'all are looking at moving the utility pole and taking some of that bluff off. And you've got the right-of-way agreement to do that to help with the misalignment.
We discussed that coming off the far side of the bridge. I don't know that we'll move a utility pole, but we may shave the bank back some.
Okay, if you're coming down the creek, you're in a tangent section for about 300, 400 feet from up there at the tree the rock rose out of. From there down to the bridge, that's straight. Then the way it was, there was a little bit of curve there, and it lines you up with that straight stretch from there down to the next pipe. But you know what got built. It don't line up with that upper side. You're only looking at a half a lane of road meeting that 28-foot structure. So what I'm asking you, can you or your people or Bristol put some of those short jersey curbs on there and leave a gap so if it functions like a low water bridge, the water can run through and give some kind of protection to keep somebody from getting killed there.
Something we can discuss, and we'll put up delineators. That's certainly not going to keep anybody from going across, but it's going to warn them of it. And
it's going to tell them what's about to happen.
Well, and 95% of the traffic through there probably lives there and knows the road too. But something I can discuss with them, but, I don't know if that's an option or not.
All right, I'm going to get done quick because it's not good. If it rained last night like it rained Sunday night, we would have lost every pipe above that bridge because none of them been cleaned out. That 3-tube coated pipe up there is stopped up, has been since back in the spring. The next 2 pipes above that are totally collapsed on the inlet end. One of your guys stopped the other day driving a nice SUV and took pictures that those 2 pipes, they haven't been in there but about 5 years. And logs and stumps coming down the mountain have totally collapsed, and that's what caused that big runaway up there and washed all that road out below it. So those pipes are not functioning. It rained hard in the mountain last last night. If the natural flow would have come out of the mud lick leg, that pipe would have washed out again. Because it just, when a stump hits those little pipe and using that thin gauge pipe that we're now using, it just pulled the sides of it in. So it's like that big clamp that's closed the inlet end of it. And I don't dare touch it with a hoe because I would leave a mark on it and might collapse the whole thing. If you try to pull it back out, maybe it could be jacked out, but I doubt it. But it can't carry the water.
They're up there, I think they're up there today working, trying to get everything opened back up. Of course, after the rain last week, we had
Is he going to go above the bridge?
Yeah, today they are.
Okay. Because we can't stand another 2 or 3 inch rain with those pipes stopped up.
After last week's rain, we've had roads completely shut down. Connors Valley washed out, Route 69 of Primary closed off, so they've had their hands full, but they're headed up there today.
Mr. Cox was here before you. He was really sorry he couldn't wait to see you from Pope Road. He had only money is all it takes to take care of that. So, if you're getting some effort on that pipe, please check they've cleaned those pipes and get emergency funding to replace that collapsed pipe. It won't make it through summer storms without washing that whole section out, blow it there like it did last Sunday night. And y'all haven't been up there. But I realize you got limited equipment, limited people, so that's why you hadn't heard from me. Do the best you can. I appreciate that. Connors Valley had to have been a mess. But
they've had their hands full with the
more crusher run won't fix it though, will it?
The what?
Dumping more crusher run won't fix these problems.
Well,
We only make
the
steel
road,
and stone
it needs to
bridges.
be just like what we're doing now, bigger pipes put in and hydraulic analysis.
Secondary drainage. Thank you, Jeff.
Yep.
Mr. McRoberts.
Some point in time this summer, I'd like to see us pave Tanner Hill Road from one end to the other. It goes right through the middle of the island.
Yeah, it's in rough shape.
And also, the ditch line on 94 below Delby Terrace, it's full and pushing the mud out in the road. And I think
The ditch line below Delby Curve, what is that? Which road is that?
the mud and all washed off with Delby Terrace out in the road, in the ditch line now.
What road is it, though?
Kicking out in the road.
Okay. We'll take a look at it.
That's all I think.
Mr. Horny?
I want to say thank you. I talked to Mr. Fowler the other day, and he said y'all were going to put guardrail up
Right.
St. Peter's Road.
We're doing that with some of the county safety funds that they gave us.
Appreciate that. Appreciate them scraping the gravel roads. But I have got a question. Martha's got pictures, or hopefully got pictures, or maybe a video, and I just want to know if this is something that's a VDOT legal problem, or if it's a EPA problem.
Where is it at?
The feedlot on Speedwell Hill.
They're out there looking at that this morning.
Because the video shows that, I mean, you have to turn your head sideways, everything in Speedwell's a little cockeyed.
I'll lay down in the floor.
That's just where it was flowing. I mean, you can't really see it flowing down, but right there is what's coming out of that pipe coming off the bank.
Our sediment basins have got quite a bit of cow manure in them, and of course, we are a receiver just like everybody else downstream, you know. We have no teeth. We can't make another property owner do anything. But we did contact, and we've met previously with the Virginia Department of Agriculture and DEQ. And they had a remediation plan in place with the property owner to try to prevent this. You know,
Why are the pipes still there coming off the bank? That's, you know,
That's
in
what I was gonna
the, in the
ask.
summertime,
I thought those pipes were supposed to have been removed.
removed.
they're out there meeting this morning to discuss the runoff and why the remediation plan isn't working, so. They've been made aware.
They've got about probably 300 or 400 or 500 more cattle in there than he needs to have.
That I have no jurisdiction over
I
that.
understand that, but you're the man that I get to fuss at.
You have
That's
anything
all I
else? Okay. I'll speak for Mr. Cox this morning. Mr. Russell, I know we've got some high-volume money coming on Major Graham Road, and maybe if we get approved for it, and recreational access money can do Pump Holler Road. You know, if we get them two things, that money, can we move Pope Road up? I think they're next on the list. Enable us to move Pope Road up.
I don't think they're next on the list if you, as far as not being fully funded. We still need money on Miller's Creek. The remainder of Major Graham Road, we still need funding on that. You got Mount Airy Road and Wilkins Road that are all in front of Pope Road.
I didn't know. I thought Pope Road was.
You can, if you look at that individual sheet I gave you,
Yeah.
that's kind of the order. And
Jeff, this don't sound like I'm looking after my district, but I don't understand. When we got funding from High Use Rural Road, that was maybe a one-time fix, a two-time fix. Major Graham has come a long way because of the money you found. I don't think Major Graham from the mansion to Red Hollow is even listed on here on the 6-year plan.
yes, it is. Are you looking at the individual sheet I fixed, Joe? It doesn't have, I took off the Major Graham that we just finished. It's not on this sheet.
Okay.
Because it's completed. The Major Graham that is listed is is the next portion from where we finish paving on, as far as $500,000 will take us.
But that 232,000,
That will be what is needed out of the county's funds to go to Red Hollow after the 500,000.
Oh, to finish it all the way.
To finish it all the way.
And it won't be pavement, it would just be,
Surface treatment, but now, next year, if we apply for high-volume money and get it again, that will complete it, and we can take that $232,000 and move it on down the line.
okay, that's what I understood originally. Now, Miller's Creek, I'm looking at your number of 114,000. That next section of Miller's Creek to Smith Road, that's where our high county is 400 on that part of it. That's fully funded this year, isn't it?
no, next year.
No, I've been told next year for the last 3 years.
Miller's Creek will be fully funded this July.
Right. So can you work with your people and get that one out of the way? That next section may or may never happen because it's more expensive to build that next mile.
There's 2 sections on the plan now.
Yeah, but I'm talking about section 1 will take you from where the pavement ends,
0.6 of a mile.
0.6 of a mile up to Smith Road. The next part from there to Heather Road is going to cost twice as much to fix as what's funded this year. Because you got that gas line crossing and the water comes out of there. And then a lot of drainage problems in that next mile. But our high traffic is from Smith Road down.
Being fully funded this July, they can start it July, given their schedule. But now, we've got roads in front of them, other maintenance. I can't stand here right now and tell you when they're going to start it, but they could start it in July.
Well, but y'all do that, so that falls under your purview to help make that schedule. Y'all doing that work, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay, so those are your people making the schedule.
But I've got the board's priority order here. I'm going to go from the top of the list down to the bottom, unless the board wants me to do something different.
Well, that I don't understand.
Well, I can't skip other projects to run Miller's Creek.
Creek was in the plan long before Sharon Road was. Now, Sharon Road is funded, is that right? For $255,000.
Right.
And it says previous funding.
Right. This is the priority order as the board has added these projects to the plan. So Sharon's Drive was in before Miller's Creek.
Okay. So Sharon's Drive is going to get done first
They're working on it now.
with a very low traffic count. And where's this new plan? We're going to fix what needs fixed. We're supposed to replace the 6-year plan. I thought we were going to start looking at need and traffic count and safety and those things.
That's smart scale. That has nothing to do with the county's secondary allocations, the secondary 6-year plan.
Okay, thank you.
Let me ask you something, Mr. Chairman. You proposing to move Pope Road above these other roads here?
No, I thought Mr. Barr said that Pope Road was next, but I misunderstood.
Yeah, it's just funding is in 19.
I'm
That's
not
what I
for
said.
moving them in front of
No.
something in my district.
No, I'm not advocating for that. I just misunderstood Mr. Barr.
Thank you, Jeff.
Mr. Russell, do you have any idea or did they talk to any discussion about the bridge over at Pope Road that was washed out?
Haven't heard any updates lately. I can check and let Stephen know, and he passed the word to you. I'll have to get with the bridge division, so that would have to be done with state of good repair funding, and I don't know exactly where it stands, so.
I've asked Mr. Byer to set up a meeting with the regional engineer, and maybe we also add the bridge crew on that with Mr. Russell and see if we can get them here and let us talk to them.
He was here, what, a year ago? So, I
Well,
mean,
the
it's all based on,
district-
it's all based on the funding, and
The bridge people work for the district engineer. They're not independent of him, are they?
no, they work they work in the district, but they report to central office.
So
Richmond.
the district engineer doesn't have supervision over the bridge crew?
They work together, but he's not over them, no. They report directly to the state bridge engineer.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions for Mr. Russell?
Mr. Chairman, a couple items here. As Mr. Russell has mentioned on the one sheet page there's basically $1.173 million to be added into the next 6-year plan. So we need to look at adding roads to the plan. We need to hold a public hearing for consideration of adoption of that plan. Now, I don't know if VDOT has any list of some of the old roads we've got out there and where they stood. Obviously, your priority in previous years has been trying to look at roads that can meet the rural rustic concept in order to put as many roads on there as possible. But we do need to be looking at adding roads, and we do need to hold a public hearing. We can hold a public hearing and have the public come and talk about roads to be added or whatever, and then finalize the list and vote on the roads that'll go on at that point in time.
Mr. Russell, could you give us, would it be too much to ask to give us a list of roads that can be done rural rustic? Or do you have such a list, or could you compile a list?
I can give you my recommendations as far as the lists. I've got kind of a list. I don't have it complete, but
That would help us, and when we have the public hearing, or we can, when people come and ask for the road to be put on the 6-year plan, or we can look and see if it is, suitable for rural rustic.
we started that. I don't know if we ever completed it or not, but
I've got two questions that you brought up. What is the status of Grouse Ridge? Is it going to happen? Is it funded?
I anticipate, we haven't got the go-ahead, but I think it will be funded.
Okay, that got you involved in that. Would it be germane that we start adding beyond what you're doing of Grouse Ridge on the tail end of the 6-year plan? Right now, you're committed to get to the top of the hill out there, right?
Mr. Taylor, if I might, that is entirely separate from the 6-year plan.
Well, I know it is, but if we're making a 6-year plan, will that first segment qualify it to be added? Because we're talking about stuff that's 10 years down the road.
If we do the section that we're getting revenue sharing that we applied for, if we get the money and build it, we'll bring it into the state system. But we can't put any more of Grouse Ridge on the 6-year plan because it's not in the state system, and the only way to get it in the state system is to do a revenue sharing project.
Okay, and we don't know about that yet.
I mean, you can apply next year to extend it if you want to and go further. But it'd have to be through the revenue sharing, not the 6-year plan.
Which means the people that live up there are going to pay their half for doing it.
Correct.
But once it's done, because we're going to remember this part, once it's done, then they can get in the 6-year plan to do the next 3 miles that needs done.
No. You can't add roads not in the state system on the secondary 6-year plan.
So all y'all bought into with revenue sharing is the piece you're going to fix through the dip and restriction.
Not what they bought into. When we met with all the landowners and talked about it, we talked about the total cost of doing all 3 or 4 miles up in there under revenue sharing, or the cost of doing 1 mile or so up in there under revenue sharing. What the landowners up through there recommended was what they could afford and what they could get a tax district enough signatures passed on was to do the first mile of it now and get that brought into the state system, and then they would have to look at the next parts down the road.
Okay, so they're going to end up paying for that project one way or the other.
They would be paying
All right, let me ask you the other one. Over there off of Jewel, where the water tank road comes down is not in the state system, but we tried to deal with that 2 years ago, nothing's happened. What's the status of that one?
Orion Lane,
Yep.
is there any option other than a revenue sharing project to get that one, that short section of road brought into the system?
If the improvements were made, we can bring it into this. As long as it meets the standards, we can bring it into the system now. Whether somebody wants to go and fix the road, and then we bring it into the system, or you can do the revenue sharing and do it half and half, so.
If we brought it up to state standards on it, it's 200, 300 yards, isn't it? If it was brought up to state standard as an unsurfaced road, bring it into the system and then.
We don't bring unsurfaced roads into the system.
Okay, you want them, and I guess it has to be plant mix.
No, it don't have to be plant mix.
Okay.
Surface treatment.
All right. Can he get us an estimate for that? Let's deal with it that way.
Okay.
Maybe not revenue sharing. Do we use that pump facility and tank up there anymore?
The, first one to the right, they use part of the way up. The one on top, well on top of the hill, they don't use anymore.
But we still have water facilities up there.
Yeah.
All right, thank you.
And I guess on the 6-year plan, and especially if there's any roads that the board members are interested or have heard from your citizens want to have added, I definitely would get them to me or directly to Mr. Russell. As far as setting our public hearing date, currently we have 2 public hearings scheduled for May 8th, which is the literary loan, which I don't expect there to be a lot of comments on it, and then the noise ordinance is scheduled for May 8th. We will be discussing later today whether we will have our budget public hearing on that date, if we're going to move that out possibly to May 22nd. But I don't know that we want to do the 6-year plan on the same night that you're trying to do a public hearing on the budget. So this may be one of those where we pick another Tuesday night if we have to come in to do a.
When do we have a time frame that we have to have this done in?
They usually like to have the approved plan, the resolution, the board supported it sometime in June.
Okay. Let's schedule it for June 12th.
Now, one thing, Tim,
yeah.
one thing, Mr. Reeves, what we do like to do is have a public hearing and then take that information and the board work to develop a plan and then come back at a later meeting for
Yeah,
the
that's why I'm setting the
adoption.
Well,
public
see, the
hearing.
problem is if you do that on June 12th, then we don't come back until June 29th, the last day of the month, or whatever
Or we
that
can
is.
come back.
Or we can do recess and come
Yes.
back and do that.
I mean, I don't think we can add it. We can add it on May the 22nd, at night, come back and have the public hearing at night, if that's what you want to do.
Well, I'm thinking we may end up having our budget public hearing that night.
So that's why I'm saying June the 12th, when that we can recess for a couple of days and come back
Okay.
and set it.
That gives Jeff plenty of time to look at a couple of those roads, and if you all got any roads to turn in.
What time would it be, June 12th?
7:05 PM.
Anything else?
No, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Russell.
Thank you all.
Okay, next item on our agenda is going to closed session. Entertain a motion to go into closed session.
So move.
Have a second.
Second.
Have a motion second. Mr. Lester, will you read what we're going in closed session for?
We go into closed session under section 2.2-37,
11A7.
1187, consent with legal calendar, or counsel,
A1.
And A1.
and A1.
Okay, have a second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are now in closed session.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? We're out of closed session. Mr. Lester, will you read the certification?
Whereas the Wythe County Board of Supervisors has convened a closed meeting on this date pursuant to an affirmative recorded vote and in accordance with the provisions of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act. And whereas Section 2.2-3712 of the Code of Virginia requires a certification by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors that such a meeting was conducted in conformity with Virginia law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Wythe County Board of Supervisors hereby certifies that, to the best of each member's knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements by Virginia law were discussed in the closed meeting to which this certification resolution applies, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, or considered by the Wythe County Board of Supervisors.
A second on certifying the resolution.
Second.
Any question or discussion? Hearing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Horny?
Aye.
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 Aye. And the chair votes aye. Okay, it's,
Mr. Chairman,
yes, Mr. Hale.
let's address this now. Council,
Sir.
can we discuss this and call them Firm A and Firm B?
You can.
Somebody's mic is, there you go, Charlie.
I believe that since Firm B indicate they don't have anybody signed right now, I think it's legitimate that we tell them, being first, that they need to bring their proposal more in line, because we've heard a discrepancy of 5 to 7%. And if we vote on it right now, there's a good possibility we're going to vote money instead of smart, in my opinion. So if a motion, if that's what it needs, to notify them that they need to get their proposal in line with Firm A, that will make a significant difference in the way the board votes. Now, last time we talked about this, we were pretty even. In fact, it looked like there was an indication to hire one firm. Now, this is the sticky part. We've gone through an interview process, and there's been considerable amount of selling of one firm or the other, or promoting one firm or the other. So I think that we need to try to level the playing field because of what happened here today.
I can ask them that question. I guess if you vote to hire someone, you can negotiate the fee, after that. And if they don't negotiate, you don't hire them.
I know that that's the way it's done in other professional services, but this has not been handled like other professional services. We didn't put this out and ask people to come forward.
Yeah, you don't have to do that to hire counsel.
Well, I know you don't have to, but I'm talking about fairness.
You're welcome to do that.
I think if we vote today, because of what's happened since our last board meeting, we will not hire the people we thought we were going to hire at the last board meeting. And maybe information is good.
I don't know what the board wants to do. I understand that's your opinion. I don't know what the other board members are thinking.
Well, we never know.
Right.
If one's sitting beside of you, I don't never know what he's thinking except the black cows.
Stephen, don't think about black cows.
Well, I'll tell you my opinion. I haven't changed my opinion, so, and I'll let that be said. I haven't changed my opinion.
Okay, I don't guess there's any need to go forward with a motion then. But I'd make that as a motion that we contact them and get it back on a level playing field, not affected by money. Right now, I feel like a vote would be affected by the money proposal. If I could get a second and we do a vote, we'll find out whether money makes a difference or not.
I'm not, I mean, from what they said in there, I'm not sure where they're at in changing that fee structure, because it sounded, I mean, your interpretation of what happened was depending on how many clients they sign up, as to how willing they are to move that fee.
I heard all that,
Yeah.
Scott.
I mean, I'm happy to call them and say, will you do it for this amount of money? Or this percentage, if that's what you direct them to do.
Well, I don't know how I can get any more direct than I am. Right now, and if you vote on this, we'll find out, just on that thing of whether to contact them or not.
So let me understand, what's your motion? Your motion is to contact.
Firm B.
Right.
And tell them that one board member or all the board members feels like that the difference in their fee structure and the way it's structured, because it's not just a percentage, there's other questions, that will be, based on this vote, we're going to know whether we're going to go with A for price or B because of price, and then you won't never have an opportunity to negotiate with B. Does that make sense to you?
It does.
Okay. I just didn't understand whether my thoughts were getting.
But you never know. I'm kind of leaning towards one, I might lean towards the other.
Well, based on what?
Based on I like them better.
Okay.
But I ain't gonna vote on it today.
We're not voting on it today, Cole.
I know that, I'm not gonna vote on it today.
I have a second on Mr. Hill's motion.
You hear none, it died.
State your motion again.
That we only notify them at B and tell them that money has become the deciding issue in one person's opinion, and that since they don't have one, I understand what Scott said, that they were willing to, if they signed up 12 people, well, just go ahead and put it on the table now.
You're just wanting to ask them to lower their fee.
To restructure their fee and not.
Motion is to ask them to reload it to.
Well, it depends on how you ask a question, but Scott, if they alter their proposal, you're not actually putting fee in it.
But I mean, we're not telling them that, I mean, we're not saying, we're just asking them to, basically, we're asking them to renegotiate before we have them hire them.
But, yeah, because if you pick the other one, you don't ever have a chance to negotiate with B.
I understand that, Judge.
Okay.
But I mean, I'm just saying, we're asking them to negotiate. We're not asking, we're not saying, we're not even saying, if y'all come down to this price, we're gonna hire you. We're just saying.
No. Not saying that at all, just put it back to a level playing field now.
I'll second your motion.
Scott's a wordsmith, how do you think make it shorter?
I'll let it stand as you stated it. I'm not sure I can reinstate it.
All right.
You're asking me to ask if they're willing to move that fee down to negotiate with us, if the board so chose to choose that firm.
I see Mr. Hill's point in asking them that. To me, the fee doesn't change my mind one way or the other.
You can always go back into closed session to talk about it and get an idea. I mean, it sounds like Mr. Roberts doesn't want to really make any decisions today, but, if you want to go back into closed session and talk about how you felt about the lawyers and the fees and everything, you can do that. And get an idea of what everybody else is thinking, and then go from there.
Well, let me ask you a question. If we adjourn now, how much of that will encroach on your time with the budget this afternoon? See,
Well, I don't understand what you're saying, how long?
If we go into closed session, if we take a recess now, and then come back and go in closed session, do the discussion, how much time will that take away from your presentation this afternoon?
Well, I mean, we're gonna have to go through our discussion. I don't know if Mr. Horny has a bus driver this afternoon lined up, or if he needs to get one lined up, but, it's gonna take a while, obviously, to go through some of these budget numbers.
Yep.
So, but, you know,
Well, I'm willing to stay here as long as it takes, if it's 9, 10 o'clock tonight. But when we do this, we'll recess for, oh, well, it's,
I'll withdraw the motion till after the recess.
okay,
Withdraw the motion.
okay. And when we do it like this, we'll recess, and how much time does people think they need to go over and grab them a bite? Is asking to be back at 1, too soon, or 1:15?
I think 1:15 is the earliest.
Okay. Recess until 1:15. We'll discuss, go into budget discussions, and then we'll decide after budget discussions if we need to come back or we have time to go into closed session and discuss legal issues. We are now,
I just have a question. Are you doing budget stuff first when you come back?
yes,
And then, Stephen, if you want me back, you call me, or
okay,
if not, that's fine too.
okay. We're in recess to 1:15. And I'll give the floor to Mr. Byer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. What is before you is a memorandum, just an update of where we stand on the budget for the upcoming year. And then I handed out just a recommended expenditure budget showing the differences from this year to last year. Just make it simple, all of you have all been sent a full package online that has it broke down by the individual line items, so welcome any questions that you have there.
Red lower?
Red is lower this year than last year. Black is more this year than last year.
In school renovation, you got it negative 560,000. Why is that because of
The school renovation, the difference is the negative. Last year, there was $10,700,000 in there. This year, there's $5 million in there that y'all talked about adding the additional $5 million. So it's dropped from last year's budget request, the $5,700,000.
I'm not following you.
Okay, the second column from the left, from the right, is the recommended budget for this year. And at the last meeting, you all recommended going ahead and putting in the $5 million for the school renovation project.
Yeah, but shouldn't it be a positive? I mean, we've already allotted them to 10 million.
This is strictly difference in last year's approved budget to this year's
okay.
approved budget.
I see what you've done now.
Yeah. So yes, the total that they'll have is the
And
15
more.
million plus. But yes, what's last year's budget, you budgeted 10, this year you're budgeting 5. So just to give you a summary of where we are, we talked about at the last meeting, the amount we were pulling out of reserves to balance the budget, and talked about the possible real estate tax increase. What was included in the draft budget that was sent to you was a large proposed real estate tax increase of 5 cents. Would increase our recommended, or our anticipated intake from real estate tax from $10,800,000 to $11,925,000. A $1,125,000 increase. In addition to that, the draft budget you are looking at is still pulling $1.5 million out of surplus funds for next year. Now, a lot of that can be associated with the one-time capital expenditures project and the capital projects, and a few dispersed throughout the budget. The primary reason for the tax increase, and I summarized it, three things that I kept hearing from you all. You all can decide if other things or not. First of all was the schools. Last year, when we voted to approve the $10 million for the schools, we indicated that we would not put any tax increase for the school budget or for the debt service in there last year, that we would put that debt service in this year's budget. The total debt service shown takes into account the $10 million we borrowed last year, the additional $5 million we plan to borrow this year, and a decrease based on the refinancing of the Royal Tree High School, Royal Tree Middle School project. The second item is the school resource officers and SSOs. That is a total budget item hitting the general fund of about $418,000. Originally, we had in there about $200,000 some dollars of grant money that we anticipated getting, as you all are aware, based on the DCJS grant seminar that they went to. There's not but $1 million available. You might be lucky to, basically means, they said 16. My math says they should be able to fund 20 officers, but 16 to 20 officers across the state is all that's going to be funded. So I only included $50,000 in grant revenue on our revenue budget because I felt that was the most reasonable number we could expect on it. And then the third thing, we've increased operational expenses for the fire and rescues in there.
Now, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Is this what the sheriff wants?
Is this what the sheriff wants?
Yeah.
No, as I said at last meeting, the sheriff would prefer that you fund full-time school resource officers that, at those positions.
And that's cost of over $1 million.
For all school resource officers, your cost for the 4 that I've got in there right now is $216,000, so you double that for 8 school resource officers and add half of that to it, so you would be up if you did all school resource officers, 10 of them,
You'd be
you'd be up close to $5,600,000.
And that wouldn't include cars, equipment?
Correct. That it would include, the price I've got in here right now includes for 1 vehicle because he has 3 vehicles already in that position. So what I have proposed is 4 school resource officers, just like you all discussed last time, and 6 or 7 school security officers.
Are they going to be working for the sheriff?
The school security officers, by code, have to be employed by the school board as school security officers. A school resource officer works under the authority of the sheriff. Now, there is another option that is out there that was not in our final discussion, and that is part-time school resource officer. The 4 school resource officers are full 4-time employees, and that means when they are not working for the sheriff's office or not working at the school, the sheriff office would assign them other tasks and duties. They would be the sheriff's employees fully at the employment and will of the sheriff.
So when you're saying the other option would be part-time, they would only.
Part-time would,
They would only work the schools and then that would be it?
correct. Part-time school resource officer would be very similar in the budget to what you've got for the school security officers.
Courtroom security.
Or courtroom security, either one. The dollar-wise would be basically the same thing. They would be hired to work, and we've got in there 185 days a year, but the sheriff would have to hire them as part-time employees. There would not be a vehicle there. They would drive to the school and work at the school, but then in the summer, you're not paying them, they're not working in the process. But that's not in the budget, because that's, when we did our recommendation for the grant application last time, what we've got is the 4 for the high school, middle schools, and the 7 for the elementary schools and the vocational school.
So the one we're proposing to do is they go to the school that they have for, and then what?
I'm sorry, repeat that.
The one we're proposing to do, are they going to the school that does coolies?
The school security officers, all school resource officers have a schooling that they've got to attend and go to in a process. Mr. Cooley's the school resource officer, and he, like I said, is willing to come and talk to both boards, and we're trying to get that set up so everyone understands that. They would go, the school security officer that works under the school board could go to the Criminal Justice Academy to get their requirements for the firearm training.
And other training that
And the other training that they're needing, yes.
So the school board picks up the liability, or the county?
There would be a liability insurance policy that is recommended that we would be getting for that position. Yes, sir.
Has Baycorp got back in touch with you?
I've not gotten a quote from Baycorp on that yet.
You may not be able to answer this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. If we hired all full-time school resource officers, how much money could they bring in to the police activity fund by when they're not at the school? Yeah, I know it's a guess, but.
I do not have that answer. All I know is the sheriff indicated this year that he could no longer fund it because the amount of money that they're bringing in as school resource officers is not enough for him to cover that part of the budget.
How, Chief Berger, maybe you can answer.
I can't participate.
I can't even get information from you.
No.
How many hours you work?
No. I didn't create this, sorry.
Maybe I need to call the sheriff. I just want to know how many hours they work. A regular police officer.
How many hours they work?
Yeah, do they work a 12-hour shift? Do they work an 8-hour shift?
Oh, I don't know what, I mean, they work the equivalent to 40 hours a week, but I don't know. I don't know if they work 12-hour shifts or 8-hour shifts.
Stephen, to make it simple, if you had 13 school resource officers, I guess now we're counting the town out there and not going to participate as far as our budget.
What we put in the budget was for 10 positions, yes.
But how does 10 positions cover all the schools?
10 positions covered, one person at Roll Tree High and Middle, one person at Fort Chiswell High and Middle, one at George Wythe High School, one at Scott Memorial High School. So your 4 high school, middle schools were covered by the 4 SROs. Then you have 6 elementary schools. And then you had one, I still call it the vocational school, but, what's the official name for it? Technology Center.
The value per each of those is what, counting the new equipment and all the things that I've read in the email. What would the one-time cost be for this coming year? It's not $600,000.
Okay, as we've got it presented, the school resource officer's position and what's included in that position originally, the one-time cost for 4 full-time officers, a total budget of $317,000 with one-time equipment cost estimated at $108,000. This was for 4 officers. After talking to the sheriff, he already has enough vehicles and equipment for 3 existing school resource officers. So your one-time cost dropped down to about $30,000. And that was for vehicle and equipment supplies for 1 additional officer.
So what I ask you, if you took those 2 numbers and multiplied it by the whole group being resource officers,
Okay.
what would the number be?
Well, if we,
I realize part of it's a one-time cost.
well, if you just take, assuming he still has, are you saying hire 13 people or hire 10 people? I want to make sure I know the number you're looking at.
Fire one, hire them, put them in all the schools, just like you said.
Okay. So if we were looking at hiring 11 people, taking off the 3 one-time equipment things that he has, that's 8. I would estimate the one-time equipment cost on that alone to be, using the $30-some thousand number, to be about $250,000 for one-time equipment cost.
$250,000. Now, your payroll would cost what, use the sheriff's number?
Your recurring cost each year for that many.
I'll just use the number we had here for, if we used 8 for discussion right now, because I had that number down there. 8 full-time officers, including one-time equipment and recurring cost, was a total annual budget of $556,000. If I add 3 more officers to that, you add another $160,000 to that. So the estimated cost for 11 full-time school resource officers for the first year, $560 and $160, $720,000.
And that's the cost of every year.
That's total cost for everything. The ongoing cost for salary and benefits alone for 11 officers would be about $535,000 a year.
It's just my opinion. That don't get the job done like we want it done. Because what's come out of this discussion is that when they have to take a case to court, when they have a sick day, that school's not covered. There's no float man to give other people a day off. So it'd be random when somebody, and it might be that on certain days, 3 or 4 schools might not have anybody. So that's a minimum that can assign somebody there, not meaning they're gonna be there all the time.
Who covers for them now? We've only got 3 right now, right?
I don't know nobody.
And I don't understand that, but that, if we're either gonna do the job right or we're not gonna do it right. So what we've had for several years has been a minimum, and now we've got a much bigger problem and a bigger field to look at. And I think if we don't do it right, we're in error. And I don't know what's right. If you look at hiring enough resource officers or having enough training, there needs to be an MOU with the sheriff that somebody's going to be at their schools.
Well, the sheriff has an MOU with the school system right now. That is one of the requirements of this. There is an MOU in place with the school system right now. That was one of the discussions about having 7 school security officers, because you had the 6 elementary schools, but then you've got the vocational school that's next to George Wythe High School, whether you had that person been able to rotate and cover areas as need be also.
Oh, but the real funding is we're still, with that plan, we're going to fund resource officers for the high schools, right?
And middle school.
And middle schools, and then school security officers for the others, which, if this grant thing is what it appears to be, that we're going to be lucky if we get one.
Correct.
So if you went back to the plan that I did budget on, of having all resource officers, you only got one, what would it be like if he was the supervisor or the sergeant, whatever rank they are, over all the school security officers? And he could be the fill-in guy of somebody, but I had 20 on there, so they could be part-time. You'd have one officer, say Gene worked 3 days, Coy works 2 days, it keeps them under that minimum. School can do that. If they work it out between them, and Coy needs a day off for a funeral or something, you got somebody there to pick it up. With all resource officers, if anything comes up, there's nobody to fill in the gap.
Well, your advantage with school security officers is you're looking at part-time as it is anyway. So you're going to have 2 people per school. So if somebody needs time off, the other person might be working. Or there's nothing that prohibits, if Mr. Horney is the school resource officer at Roll Retreat Elementary School, but he's off Thursday and Friday, and Speeble has a vacancy on Thursday and Friday, he can go over there and fill the vacancy on Thursday and Friday. Those would be their employees. It'd be like they could move them anywhere they wanted in the process.
They need a leader
Yeah.
that
Now,
makes sure all those are filled.
the technical difference with what you have said is the school resource officer is a sheriff's department employee. The school security officers, if we do it as school security officers, are school board employees. Now, if the sheriff works out some memorandum of understanding with them for that oversight, but technically, they're a school board employee, I don't have any say over them. A sheriff's department employee doesn't have any say over them. Now, he can be the developer of the plan or the master plan or whatever.
Well, don't we have a similar arrangement like that right now with Arlen?
Arlen's county employee.
Carl, I mean, he's under the county, yes.
But he's a sworn deputy. isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, but this is not the school security officers that the code strictly says they have to be that,
I'm
yeah.
talking about him.
Yeah.
If you had a Arlen that only dealt with school security and be the officer, some of these arguments has come up that if a school security officer can't make an arrest, and somebody threw out that he's no better than a Walmart security, which is not true in my opinion. But as long as we've got one sheriff's payroll guy, he can go to any school, make the arrest. We've got road deputies that can be there probably in the worst case scenario, 8 to 10 minutes, and he can make an arrest. This is for disturbances or whatever. If you had a larceny in the school, certainly that gets turned over to the sheriff's department to make the arrest. I don't see the problem there. But if you look at, I use 20, so there would be part-time. That might need to be 22. Based on that $15 an hour, what would that cost be in payroll only?
Get my numbers up here, Mr. Hale. School security officers, the information I handed out to you last time, just so we know we're going off the same thing here. I had 8 schools at 16 part-time positions, cost $231,000. That was assuming 185 days, $15 an hour, 8-hour days for that time frame. 3 schools was $87,000. So if you add all that together, be 11 of them. You're looking at $320,000, $315,000 for that would be covering 11. So
That 11, is that all of them working 185 days?
no, that's calculating the time that somebody's covering the school. So it's all 11 schools would have somebody there 185 days, 8 hours a day.
Okay.
So whether that's 2 people, 3 people, whatever,
But they don't work 185 days. They have bank days, they have all those other days that they're not at school. I don't know the answer, but I know it.
and that's just a budget number. I mean, that's just a budget number.
That didn't include any one-time fixed cost.
Yes, it did.
It included standardized weapons.
That included equipment cost and that included recurring costs associated with the first year's cost, but there would be a recurring cost that go on every year from that. But yes, that would be what the total budget would be.
You could also ask the sheriff, is this a year that they buy new guns? Could these guys have the guns that they used? Can we use those surplus radios that we just replaced? Can they talk to deputies with their own channel? A lot of those things, I think we would be spending money that maybe there's a way that we can use some materials that we've got, or the sheriff's got. And we're beating this thing to death. And I think everybody wants to do the same thing, is get some kind of security in all the schools that's full-time. I don't think our problem is necessarily somebody coming off the interstate. I think our problems are homegrown.
Yeah, I mean, I put the numbers together as what you all requested last time. We can change them however you want. I put them in there for budgeting purposes. Are the numbers absolutely perfect? No. As we get into this, we know there are going to be things we come across or whatever in the process.
I think if we ever gonna get anywhere, the sheriff's gonna have to give a little, and the board's gonna have to give a little. Work this out, move on.
Well, I mean, that's where I thought we were, Mr. Roberts, with the 4 and and 7. We have 4 of them as school resource officers.
Well, I did too, until I read.
Until you got the sheriff's email.
And then the other was put them in there, school security officers. So, I mean, when you get to full-time, you pick up additional costs. You pick up the VRS, you pick up the health insurance, you're picking up all those things. If you do part-time school resource officers, then they are sheriff's employees, but they don't have the ability to go out and write tickets at that point in time. You don't have a vehicle for them. They're just showing up at the school. It's a lot less costly. It's exactly like the courtroom security is run. But that doesn't give the sheriff what he's wanting as well in the process, which is the school resource officers. The cheapest route is obviously
Well, he's wanting school resource officers, he's wanting all them positions, and he wants us to pay for them, and he wants all the PAF money too. I mean, you know, when he called me, you know, and that's when he informed me that Doug Cooley and the academy would train them, and Doug would even sign off on them. And, you know, he indicated to me that it was, I don't know where it got quoted as kind of misinformation, but it's not misinformation that I'm giving out, that he said that, you know, that a hybrid system, he understood that's what we were looking at.
No. I mean, I hate to be direct, but it comes down to us just deciding, you know,
We need to
getting a
decide.
positive vote, which way you want to go. Do you want to go
You got
13
3,
school resource
4.
officers, 0 school resource officers? You know, we'll put that number in here, however, and I'll be glad to run any numbers and scenarios that you all want.
Does your proposed tax increase cover the recurring costs each year for this
It does, yes,
and the school?
yes.
I don't like the tax increase, but if that's what we have to go with, as far as the 4 resource and the 7 security, I think to me, that's a pretty good compromise, and that's all 3 departments working together.
Well, you know, in my opinion, you know, we have to do a tax increase to cover the revenue, because you just can't keep taking money out of the general fund and not replacing it on recurring costs.
And we can talk to the sheriff about what you mentioned on the breaking down that scenario, if they're 100% county funded, about revising the current agreement on the 80-20 split. The General District Court has indicated that they can separate those out and turn those into the treasurers under a separate listing if that's something that is desired to do.
As far as the one-time expense, the 4th resource officer will need a vehicle.
Oh, we got 3.
And that's I have included that in the budget estimate.
Okay.
I included uniforms and supplies. The sheriff indicated that he may have uniform and guns that would cover that, so that's about $2,000, $2,500. But I still left that in the budget because we may still have to buy that.
They have the gun belts and the guns, I don't know about the uniforms.
Yeah.
I mean, and they need to go wear uniforms, they need enough uniforms to not wear the same uniform 2 or 3 times a week.
So anyway, that's why the proposal is out there. The only other way to take on the $15 million in debt and the debt service on it, and the proposals we're talking about, is to start either taking more out of our reserves. As I mentioned, we've already got 1.5 coming out of reserves for this upcoming year's budget to balance it right now. or we go back and start taking everything back to level fund it from last year, or start making drastic cuts.
But that 1.5 million, that's one-time expense, that's not non-recurring costs, right?
Most of those, well, we've got 1.2 million in capital projects. As I mentioned in my memo, 720,000 of it is associated costs with the Apex projects. Mr. Harrell requested we leave that full amount on here. There are some things that we can do to possibly lower that. We talked about some lights and some other things we get. I think that one could be decreased. The tower upgrades, a couple vehicles are in there, $45,000 for the carpet replacement, $68,000 down here for the improvement.
But that's
Those are all
one-time
expenses,
cost.
so
And we
that are
can
in there.
replenish the general fund in other ways. I mean.
We're looking at
it's-
1.2 million in recurring costs, correct? That we got to come up with to balance the budget.
Well, we've got 1.2 million in capital costs is what I was saying.
That's not recurring costs,
That's
just
not
one-time
recurring costs.
expenditures.
And we're looking at 1.5 million, well, 1.2 in our capital projects line, 1,250,000 total right there. Plus, within some of the other lines, those other items I mentioned, carpet, security systems, all of those things, those come up close to about 1.5 million that you're pulling out of surplus.
And we're going to, I think we're going to get some comp board positions added next year. Why, I'm not going, that's what I think. And I'm going to push hard for that with Camel and even with the governor. In the upcoming year.
On the funding side,
Yes, sir.
that $6 million that we set aside about 4 years ago for construction projects, does that also show up in your surplus or in your reserve fund?
No, that is not. That isn't. We could pull part of it out of that.
So that's where we took the 2.8 million.
Yeah, that's where we took the 2.5 million out of previously.
How much is left in?
There's 2 million and some out in the,
Well, I guess the first thing we took any out was to tear this building down, is that right?
No, we paid that other. Currently, the general fund, capital project fund has $537,000 in it.
well, we split them, what's the
And
other one?
then we pulled more out of the economic development.
We split that
Yeah.
and put some of it in economic development and some of it in capital project. We split it.
Industrial
Well, we
development.
didn't, Saleo split it.
Well, bookkeeping.
Yeah.
Yeah, bookkeeping
Yeah,
split
there
it
was
out.
water, there was water utility in on that also.
And all we took out of capital improvements is the 2.5 out of capital improvements. We didn't take none out of economic development.
And we could apply that general fund capital project, I mean, it's still surplus funds. It could come out of out of those funds to cover the library or to cover the courtroom security or whatever. I mean, those items are there to pull that from, not courtroom security, but we've got courthouse security. We've got those cameras and things in there that we need to do some upgrading on.
But they are two different numbers.
Correct.
That is not in a reserve fund. It's been set aside back when we had some money.
It's in the capital fund, yeah.
Okay, so
We could take action and move whatever amount we want out of that into the general fund to take care of these items in the budget. Yes, sir.
It's them two funds right there, Joe.
and I can see them, but I don't always understand how these things happen.
Yeah.
The funding, excuse me, the funding, if we took that money out of that capital fund, can that offset depletion of the reserve fund?
What,
It would still be coming out of surplus, whether it's coming out of surplus capital funds or surplus general funds, yes. But yes, it could decrease the amount that is coming out of surplus general funds, yes.
Do you understand my question?
Yeah.
Well, I understand how this works. I mean, it's all general fund money. We've got it separated in different categories. When you come right down to it, it's all in one pot of money.
But when it was set aside as a capital project funding, what we were told at that time, that would let us go ahead and do things that could be replaced with permanent funding or permanent financing. If we're just going to deplete it and never put it back,
Right.
then it is, but I'll ask you two questions here. One, when you read a number, whatever that number is in surplus funds, then it's what?
And the total surplus fund, well,
Well, the general fund is sitting at $40,800,000.
yeah. No, it would have to be more than that.
Have we moved on from the SRO? We
Yes, sir,
talked
jump
about
in
the general
anytime.
budget.
Yes, sir.
Well, we really haven't. We haven't. We're talking, let's give him the opportunity to participate, but this is part of that question.
Well, I know it's all, but we're talking about general overall budget,
Yes, sir.
not specifically the SRO thing. That's what I have to watch out for. You know, I'm just gonna tell you, and it's funny because the same person called me last night, but back last year, I had a friend of mine who is a supporter of the Expo project, and he called and asked me, you know, how come the Expo project it's the Expo Center versus this, and the Expo Center versus that. And I told him, I said, you know, it's real easy when you look at it. It seems like that project's got a blank check, and everybody else gets cut to the bone. And what Mr. Bear sent out with the 4-cent tax increase, and we went through that budget and some of these people's budget, you know, we've skinned it pretty hard. You know, we've skint education, and there's some concerns there. We've skint public safety, but yet there's $951,000 going to the Expo project. Now, I know we gotta get it open, but we don't have to open it with RV lots. There's a lot of that stuff could be cut. And as it stands right now, I won't vote for this budget. And like I said, he called me, it was odd because I was sitting there going through these numbers last night and reading Stephen's email, and we had the same discussion. And you know, I'm not one of these people that's going to stand up here and say that everybody in the county is against that Expo project. There's a lot of support for it. But the vast majority of the people I know are not supporting it, and we're asking for public outcry again if we do this. Because between what we gave last meeting, that we added back into what was cut out, and what's proposed for fiscal year, that's $1.2 million more into that.
But Brian, it's not adding money that we haven't already got allotted for it. It's just that we're adding it back in. We took it out to get a better price on it. And we put it back in. The money's all, we've not changed any more money. Since the $2.8 million that we, last year, that we applied, put towards it, the Expo Center put above the $5 million, which hopefully we can cut that down on tobacco commission money if we get more. So we've got $1 million worth of tobacco commission money into it too.
Well, I understand that.
And,
but
and
it's-
you start a project like this, and the cost did come above what we were looking at the time.
No, it never comes above our total budget for phase one.
No, I mean, well, if you look at,
$5 million.
yeah, if you look at the starting, what we started out with.
Stephen, question, we can't make good decisions without good numbers. How accurate is your projection that Kenny has $230,000 per Kenny?
Fairly accurate, yes. I mean, it's based off a couple things. Number one, Faye Barker gives us a sheet that shows us what the total assessed value is of the entire county. So therefore, you take, and it shows fair market value, you take the 1 cent off of it, or take 1 cent of that total value, and that calculates out to about $231,000. We usually put 95% down as a safe number, because we always know there's those that don't pay and we don't fully collect up to 100%. But basically, you could say it's between $225,000 and $230,000 that every 1 cent brings in.
Well, we used to use, before the last assessment, we used to use 250. We were told at the last assessment that real property value on the home overall went down, but that the commercial real estate went up enough that we gained a penny. That was the argument last year.
But the way I remembered it, it never has been 250, it was 225.
Yeah.
Is
It
what I was
215
told.
for a while, and then it went up to 225. I don't ever remember being 250. Yeah. And this year's budget is, we estimate it $10,800,000. Just dividing that by 49 cents, that comes out to about $221,000. So I mean, it's.
And that's just, how much have we added to the school debt? So how much money have we spent on the school system in the past 5 years?
Well, I mean, you got, in 5 years, goes back to about the time Rural Retreat project finished. And then, have to look at what we put into the Sheffey project, but then this project.
10 million,
I mean,
11.
this project alone is $800,000 a year in debt service, and we don't get any relief on that until 2023, that we start seeing debt service drop.
What comes off in 2023?
Rural Retreat Elementary School, Jackson, the first group, and it's about 400 and some thousand comes off that year, and 400 and some thousand comes off the next year. So we'll have about $900,000 by 2024 decrease in debt service.
I know we talked about this before, but is there any way when we break these numbers down, we can break it down to local funds? I know,
Yeah.
Mr. Hale, we talked about the school system. I mean, that's, if you look at this, it's confusing. It's got $47 million listed.
And where's
That's not
13 of it?
that's not the county contribution. I know the sheriff's office, they get the comp board. Can we just somehow break this down into actual county funds?
Yeah, we can, and that, in your board package today, and that's one of the things I'll bring up, under your consent calendar, let me get to the page on it.
Did you say consent calendar?
Yes, sir.
95?
Page 137.
What are you looking on the consent
On
calendar?
the consent calendar, under Bruce's report, page 137. Statement of school
After the
operations.
consent calendar?
Yeah, it's after the consent calendar.
Yeah, it's in the backup of the consent calendar, yes. It's in
What page?
137.
I hate to leave, but I gotta go drive school bus. But I'll agree with Cheeseburger, there are some things in the expo center that we don't have to open it.
Like what? Yeah, tell me what.
Like the RV parking.
What I mean, that's,
That was a revenue source that they need.
and
Who's getting revenue off of it?
I believe,
Right now.
I believe that's something that we can do away with and still open the place. I mean, anything that we have to get it open, we've got to push it forward, it's gotta be open. We can't just let it sit there, because we do, it's never gonna make money. But that's just my opinion.
is 130 what?
Page 137.
I can get to it faster on the other thing.
You might be able to click that box up there and just type in 137 on it.
Oh, I guess I could, couldn't
How
I?
far David look in the basement to find that laptop?
That was mine.
I left my thing at home. I had it out last night and I walked off and left it on my desk.
I was wondering what you'd done tore up to say that you had a laptop.
Okay, I'm there.
What you see there on the top section under revenue numbers, that's a breakdown of local, state, federal, and county contribution that's in the budget this year. So that 15.9 million that you see there consists of 13.1 million in operation and 2.6 million in the debt service plus the carryover that we put in there last year as well. But that's the type of thing we can provide for you, because that's, when we're doing that, and I think in the original budget that came out to you all, and I don't have it pulled up and check to see, I think Mr. Grant did break some of those out to show on the revenue side where those were coming from, but it is very confusing
Well, I
in
mean,
that process.
until you get to where it's combination state and federal and county money,
Yep.
that is what, whereas everything else is broke out.
Yep.
But, when you get to the sheriff's department and the school, it's just,
DSS is the same way on the next page, page
Yeah.
138. It breaks them out from the funding sources and shows the county contribution on that. Because I have to work with Mr. Grant to go back and take all when the funding sources come in to do that. But yes, we can break that out to help on any of those areas.
I mean, it's just, and going back to the schools, and I think Mr. Hale would, I think we've all sat up here and had issues or areas that we thought that the school could save money. Is there a reason we don't, I mean, I know we can't tell them how to spend their money, but is there a reason we don't have a joint meeting with them throughout the year? I mean, I'd rather do that than bring all our concerns together during budget time.
well, I mean, we brought up concerns in meetings with them, but, well, it was a different superintendent at that time, and, the school board tried to tell us we was trying to tell them what to do with their money. So,
And I mean, it's a catch-22.
I know.
But, I think everybody had, I think everybody's brought up valid points, but at the same time, I think Dr. Poole brought up a valid point about the increase in special ed. Instead of saying, no, we're giving you the same thing as we did last year, it'd be nice throughout the year if we can say, why are you spending $19,000 on fertilizer? I don't know why. They may have a good reason for it.
I don't know. But the special ed's money is federal money. That's what they get. I don't know if they supplement it with what we give them or how they work at, and, and I'll check back with.
I think it's an unfunded mandate to the 10th degree.
Well, a lot of this is unfunded. The state and the feds could pick up a lot more. But, you know, they sat down there and they're at the opinion, you know, it's just like the General Assembly. And, you know, I'm a Republican, I'm talking about the Republicans. And the sit down there and say, they refuse to do any type of tax increase or any type of increase in any type of revenue where they could give the counties, the school systems, and the sheriff departments more positions and other things. But they've dug in their heels, and you know there's no compromise. They sit down there and say we're not raising revenue on anything.
Well,
and they know that the county cost is going up every year, and they say, well, let the board of supervisors raise taxes to handle it.
Well, and I don't know if you've seen the article in the Richmond Times, they're just now looking at forming a committee to look at these aging schools. Now, how long Southwest Virginia dealt with that? Apparently, it's becoming a problem in Northern Virginia, Richmond, because it's getting somebody's interest.
From roughly Fredericksburg up, you won't believe it, but they build schools per year. Spotsylvania County builds a $60 to $70 million high school every 2 years, and they throw in a $40,000 elementary for good measure. That ball will stop someday because they can't pay it anymore.
They do in Myrtle Beach too, and I never could figure it out till I found out South Carolina's education had taxing authority, which explained it.
And another thing, gonna come back and bite us in the butt on this smart scale stuff. In our board of directors meeting, the Fairfax said the General Assembly wouldn't do anything about Metro and help them pay for it. So they're gonna have to use some of their, what is that special fund they have for transportation up there?
Yeah.
They're gonna have to use part of that now to pay for Metro, so they'll be going after smart scale money.
But I've never thought that we ought to pay for Metro and DC.
Well, it's
or Virginia.
Well, no, they were gonna pay for it themselves. They asked the General Assembly to do some type of a tax. It was just up there.
They can put a user tax on the Metro.
Well, I mean, but the General Assembly said no.
I understand.
It wasn't affecting anybody except for the people where Metro run. So.
Even if we raised $1 million in taxes, can we leave the reserve funds alone and meet all of our commitments?
We don't do any capital improvements.
To not have to touch surplus, you would have to take off all your capital improvements, and that would include everything that we're talking about for the Expo Center. Which part of that you can't take off. The roads, you've got to leave in there to finish the roads down through there and the construction on the roads.
If we raised another $1 million in revenue, where would it go then?
Oh, if we raised another $1 million?
Yeah.
Oh, if we raised another $1 million,
Well, that's pay for the old debts, the $800 and some thousand, then plus we're refinancing Progress Park.
Yeah.
And having to pay for that too, which that's kind of in the budget just like the Expo was in last year's budget.
Yeah.
This is money, the extra money in this year is the money we're needing that's been requested in this year's budget.
yeah. Basically, the proposal raises $1.1 million. The 5-cent tax increase brings in $1.1 million.
Now, what will we get for that?
What will you get for that?
Will we get a balanced budget, everybody gets what they want?
No. What I stated there is that $1 million that you're raising basically covers your George Wythe High School debt service and your school resource officers.
Most of them?
Yes.
That doesn't cover any fire trucks or any of those things?
That's just the George Wythe High School debt service and the school security.
Yep. In general, that's what you're
5%
covering.
tax increase.
And that's where the budget shows whether we pull it out of capital reserve funds or out of surplus funds or whatever, we're still pulling about $1.5 million out of our reserves, out of our, what's in the bank to balance the budget.
So if we took off every capital improvement thing that's on there, every one-time expense, we're still looking at needing a 5-cent tax increase to cover the recurring expenses.
Yes. I mean,
well, that's a lot of money. I mean, you're talking about $15 million to renovate George Wythe High School. That's a lot of debt service.
yeah. You can't just take that on and absorb that with no more growth than what we've had in recent years. I mean, that's it. I don't like this, but, I mean, you know, the only other way to do it is start paring a whole lot of things back, or just say we're going to be taking more out of reserves in the process.
Well, there is another way. We've had people come in here for the last year and a half saying, we don't care what taxes are, just do it. If you're going to raise taxes significantly, this is the year to do it. And paring back, now, I guess, when we talk in generalities, we're talking both sides of our mouth a little bit. If you say, if we raised $1 million worth of new taxes, it would only cover two things. The debt service on George Wythe, giving them everything we originally asked for, except the middle school. All that money's going to be spent on the existing George Wythe facility. You know, I think that's too much, but beside that, if we buy that package, and then the other number that you talked about was putting a limited amount of resource officers, not putting all of them where we need them. So we're not really looking at the total picture. If you had the ideal world, everything that everybody's asked for, would it take $2 million to do it? Or does it take $1 million to get a piece of it?
Well, Mr. Harrell, I can't answer that question because it depends on what everybody's ideal world is. Yeah, $720,000 for the expo, you would say, yes, you need that. Mr. Vaught may say, no, we don't need that $720,000. I mean, what's that balance in there? You know, it's a matter of finding that balance of where we go, what we put in the budget, and how much our taxes are to do that.
Well,
So,
that's not the question I'm asking. Maybe I didn't say it right. You mentioned that we could buy 2 fire trucks. I don't think anybody is interested in spending $1.2 million for new fire trucks. So paring it down don't mean saying, no, you're not getting a new truck. Roberts has a good idea for a fire truck that don't cost $750,000. It's the responsibility of the Board of Supervisors to say you don't need that big toy or that big piece of equipment that you have no use for. But the difference, 750 and 250 or 300 is about $500,000 we could save. Give them a new truck that works for them in their geographic area. Come over here to the same thing with a $400,000 tanker. There's no reason the tanker needs to cost $400,000 just because a bunch of firemen have a meeting and say that's the only thing they want.
Yep.
That's a board decision, I think, because you're asked to fund it. If you go to what we talked about, school operating fund, that's not a one-time thing. And every year since I've been on the board, they've asked for half to another $1 million of operating money every year. So that wheel just gets bigger, and our school population is going down. And that doesn't include any construction activities, right? No debt service. So I'm just saying, what number would it take to get what you've got on the budget right now without touching the reserve fund? Or is there money in the reserve fund that you say is available?
Well, I mean, the reason why I proposed it like I did was the 5 cents I felt like was a very high rate as it was for a tax increase. And with the other items primarily being one-time expense type items, they could be absorbed by what we are holding in reserves in the general fund right now. I do not ever recommend ongoing expenses coming out of reserves. That's why, I put the tax rate in there like I did, because we know we're going to be paying for 20 years on George Wythe High School. And we can't be pulling that out of reserves every year for 20 years. I mean, that's, you pay that now. The citizens expect that. They understand you're paying for a school that's going to be serving them for 50 years out there. To get to the number that we would not be pulling anything out of reserves, you're going up to probably a 12-cent tax increase, which is not.
We've got how much in reserves?
Well, right now, the general fund's sitting on a balance of about $40 million.
But it steadily decreases.
Yeah.
In the year till we start getting taxes back again, it gets close to our ceiling.
What's the lowest point that it gets?
Usually the lowest point, and it should be in here, your board package.
31 million, 32 million.
Yep.
And we've got to maintain.
Yeah. Page 121, your general fund balance usually hits its low point around September, October timeframe, where it goes to. Our debt service requirement line, he has highlight on there just a little below 25 million, and over the last couple years, we, back, was it 15 or so, 14, 15 is when we had to shuffle around to make certain we did not go below that level. Over the last few years, we have been above that level. Looks like we bottomed out a little under $30 million last year in August. I don't have the exact figure right there.
I think we're safe if we took $1 million out of surplus, but I don't think we can take no more than what you've got proposed.
You're basically saying we've got $5 million in surplus.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, then, if we voted 5-cent tax increase, this thing you passed out to us, is that number on the left of the other counties, is that their current tax rate or their new tax rate?
That is their current tax rate. I looked to see what Pulaski County was talking about with that $45 million school project. They were talking 13 cents. The last I had heard from Mr. Sweet when I was in Richmond, he thought it was going to come in lower than that. I actually looked yesterday to see if they had advertised anything yet. I didn't go as far as to read their minutes.
But they had a referendum and that
They had a
passed
referendum on that.
to
Mr.
build
Paul
it.
may have read some of their minutes. I know he loves reading minutes, but I don't know if they've.
Who was that?
Pulaski County.
13 cents.
They're still looking at 13.
Was last time.
That's last I had heard.
Franklin County's looking at 12. If we added 5, we would still be well within the range of our neighbors
You were still lower than everybody except Grayson.
and Grayson.
Well, Grayson don't have land use either, do they?
Right, now, I don't think that Grayson County can ever be held up as an economic model. We help provide a library for them. It looks like we pay more than the lion's share of the library.
Well, they don't pay their school system what we pay our school system either.
And I'm not advocating one way or the other, but land use, if we didn't have land use, if we were like Grayson County, if we didn't have land use, our 49 cents would bring in another ironically enough, $1,250,000. So that's,
You know we're not gonna touch land use.
we're not gonna touch land use, don't need to touch land use.
This time, after much struggling, we got it a little bit more money from it, but it only amounted to about 25 cents an acre,
Yep, came up to about $30,000 total.
which amounted to nothing.
You-
And still got grief.
Utility tax, who sets that rate?
The state takes they take a percentage of what our reassessment is and calculate all that into it off of our rate. So,
Like the tax, local tax for AEP,
Like, yeah, for AEP,
We
Norfolk
don't set
Southern,
that.
all of those, right. They calculate the total value out and what our assess ratio is, and then take it at our tax rate to come up with what our local tax is.
And that's one of those things that's lumped together to where you can't track it. We
Well-
pay a different,
Well, we
they pay
pay-
a different transmission tax.
Yep.
They pay a real property tax. And if you can decipher it on your bill, it looks like that the extras cost more than the service does.
Well,
We
it's-
get a report every year that indicates, where it is, and like I said, we did up the utility tax there, public service utility tax up to 1.5 million based on where we currently are, and what's come in.
Well, the reason I noticed, they was talking about this in the meeting this past weekend, but I was looking at my CenturyLink bill, which they trying to overcharge me. It's got $1 on there as county tax, $1. And the state's getting way up there.
Yeah, that 911 fee type thing that every county used to have on there with it years ago
It's
got
still
taken
on
over
there.
by that utility tax thing, and it all goes to the state, and then they send that back to us.
There's still a 911 fee on there. It's all
Yep.
broken out on your bill.
Yep.
And the county tax is $1.
Have any of these other counties, have you heard if they're looking at a tax increase, other than Pulaski?
I have not heard from anyone else at this time, no.
If we had some kind of agreement with the sheriff, we could go on with the bid, right? Why not?
Well,
Why not, let's work with the sheriff and see if we can get something worked out.
well, I indicated, I want to be careful here to make certain that I'm not misquoted. The sheriff wants, we
If he had
prefer all
his,
school resource
if he
officers.
had his choice,
Yes,
he
he has
wants
all
all
school.
school resource officers.
And he would prefer that you're funding all of that. He understands that the school security officer takes additional signing off on, and on the firearms, and he's indicated that the criminal justice academy can take care of that. We'd have to pay the $300 and some per person that goes into that. I can talk with the sheriff and talk, more about what we're looking at doing here. But ultimately, it's going to come down to what you all agree to fund. And if you all want to do it as all school resource officers, I would recommend that you're going to have to add additional tax rate to this to cover the cost. If you want to do it as a split, I'll put the numbers in here however you all so direct. I think the 4-7, gives the sheriff, it puts a school resource officers in the high schools and middle school, which was one of the areas that they indicated they seem to have an extreme value of having a school resource officer. You control, and in the school security officers, you give full control of that in the elementary schools to the school system. Yes, you have to make certain you've got the liability insurance covering that in the process. But then they've got the ability to work with each one of those individuals in the school doing the teaching, the education, the relationships that they want them having.
Can you make a proposal A, do that, and then an alternative? If we budgeted the three he's got now, the three he's always had, and got that fourth one, that would cover putting a security officer with each one of these sworn deputies. So when he's gone, there would at least be somebody in the school and come up with that number. So to me, that makes more sense.
Would you repeat that for me so I understand it? Three full-time SROs.
Right, and add 3 part-time. That way, it seems to me you could drop the vocational school. You could maybe not have a problem having a school security officer at the high school, middle school. So when the sworn deputy is gone, you've at least got somebody still there. Put the part-time person working with the deputy at the high school, 3 of them.
SROs, part-time SROs.
No, full-time SROs.
3 full-time SROs
When you know what that's gonna cost.
and 3 part-time.
SSOs.
Adding 3 SSOs to
Yeah.
what's already.
You're getting the bargain. You still got what the sheriff wants. And with effort, that is the best program we can come up with.
So 3 part-time SSOs in addition to 6
You talk about
school,
9.
elementary schools SSOs.
Talk about 9 SSOs
Yeah.
and 3 school resource officers.
And that should be a compromise that everybody should like. It preserves the jobs he's got, and we've made a commitment to the school board that we're gonna make it work. I think that's a good compromise to propose to the church.
And he said that the school board meeting, it'd be 2 years before he could put anybody in the schools.
You agree that's the hinge pin of getting the budget done, those 2 items, as Boyd stated, they're the real hinge pin of whether we go forward or not.
Well, that and the renovation of George Wythe High School, I mean, that's them the 2.
I mean, yeah, I don't, what you're talking about is going in general here from 1 full-time SRO to 3 part-time SSOs.
I think he
You're
meant
not
3
gonna see much of a
full-time
budget difference in that
SSOs.
either way. Do what?
I think he means 3 full-time SSOs.
That's what I said, leave them alone like they are. I assume that they're still available. And add 3 SSOs to take care of the middle school and a backup for the SRO when he's got to be gone.
Okay.
You still have somebody there. So you're adding 3 people.
3 full-time SSOs. You're saying full-time,
Well, they would be part-time people, so we save the money.
okay.
If you
So
want-
you're looking at covering three schools
That we're not counting now.
with part-time.
Then I suggest we go back and make that presentation to the town, see if they want to play ball.
Well, next Monday night, you've got the joint governing bodies meeting, so I'm sure the issue can come up at that point in time. But I think there's I can't speak for the town, I haven't attended their meetings, my understanding are, just like on our board, there's some that support all school resource officers and school security officers, and some that are saying it's not a town issue at all.
Well,
and-
that's the famous, you were there at
Yeah.
the personnel committee meeting. They openly threw out that they had already talked about putting money in it, how much additional money, and I found fell off the chair when the number was mentioned.
Well, that's, Joe Hand come to me the next day and said, that was just a discussion, how it got blown out of proportion. They said, we haven't agreed to nothing. So,
Yeah.
and I took it that unless something changes, I don't look for any money from the town.
That's where I'm going with the budget.
Place to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't count on it. But, I
What-
think we gotta get by this to get anything done.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'll ask for some form of direction here. So, I don't know if you want to we had 4 last time and 7 SSOs. We got a different request out here now. I'll put the numbers in however you all wish to put the numbers in. I don't think this is going to make a huge difference either way in this. This is going to be about a wash in total cost here.
But that's how compromises are made.
Absolutely.
Now, the other question about money is what if we just had the courage to go back to the school board and say, get real about this $5 million? They're right back to where they asked for last year. We gave them $10 million last year. The A&E firm said they could work with it last year to make it happen. And then they come right back to their old number. $10 million is a lot of money. And they're putting $6 million of that in that mechanical system, and you know where I stand on that one. It's not the most efficient system, it's not the most cost-effective day one to put in. There's a system out there that's made for renovations, they're totally ignoring it. Won't even look at it, won't even price it, and that's by school board direction, not the A&E firm. I brought up when y'all were all there, we were walking the halls, which is a darn good ploy not to get anything discussed. About fixed windows, that might be as much as $150,000 on George Wythe. And it was, well, our policy is we have all fixed windows. Those things are just, well, that's your suggestion, but we're not going to do it. So where are we as a funding group?
That's all we can do. We either give them the money or not give them the money.
But it's what they asked for. Why not offer them less and let them do with less?
What I put in there was what y'all sort of agreed to last time, and that was the $5 million.
What they asked
So-
for.
Actually, they requested about $5.6 million is what they
Yeah.
requested.
Well, they were asking us to pay the A&E again. So we really gave them 10.699 last year.
Mhm. Yeah, we said that. We were giving $700,000
And
out
we
of
took that out of the general
reserves.
fund.
Yeah.
That ain't part of the loan.
Yeah.
That come out of the reserves as a one-time expense. Charlie, what you're feeling on the school resource officers? How many?
I like what's proposed.
4 and 9?
4 and 7.
4 and 7.
4 and 7 schools.
That is basically what the school board said they would prefer. I can see Joe's solution as well.
Coy?
I want school resource officer. And I also like to make the sheriff not mad at us over it. So I don't know.
Well, I don't think he's gonna be mad. I know what he prefers, but I think he'll deal with what we give him.
We still have to deal with it.
Well, like I said, okay, you do all resource officers, what's that gonna cost us? it's gonna be more than a 5-cent tax
Hey,
increase.
that suits me. That suits me, but it don't suit him.
Well, that should suit him if we give all school resource officers. That's what he's wanting.
That he can't supply for 2 years.
That's what he says.
I say there's gotta be a median.
I think the median is along the lines of what we talked about, the 3 or 4, or whatever it is, in the school security officers. And folks, you go into it a year and the school security officers are not the right route. Next year, we sit here and we talk about how we change that
I
in the
mean, we may
process.
not get 4 deputies to put in for the positions. I
Well,
mean,
I'm
we
certainly
had-
gonna have 3 because there's 3 of them right now that are in
Well,
position.
I mean, 3 new deputies, I mean, they advertised it and they couldn't they got 1 out of the bunch, I think, that may pass the background and the PT test. And we may not find enough SSOs. I mean, we're shooting, this is something new. I mean, and the past, and especially been in law enforcement, they've been through the academy and all this stuff, we may not find that many.
I mean,
I'm gonna make a comment on the general budget, not about what you're discussing, but I think any new programs that are funded to the school board, any funds that they don't spend need to come back to the county. And you can read between the lines on that.
Well, I agree totally with you, that their carryover, I mean, most of the time, the only reason we give it back to them is to use on, like the roof replacement on the technology center, we let them have last year to do that, the carryover.
I talked to Mr. Farthing in our our weekly meeting this morning on our funding and determining the process and appropriate procedure for how we fund any new program to the school system. Because we have to give them that money. So does it fall in within that regular budget, or can we obviously keep it separate and identify it for school security funding only? Because you got those categories in which you're funding the schools in and that they're spending the money in, but this sort of is outside of it, so I've asked him to make certain how this works. I've got it shown in your budget as a separate line item there, that line item 6130 for school security officers.
Well, it's in the code, what you can, over the 8 million that were mandated, the other money that we give them, there are certain categories to go, we can earmark that money to go to.
And my question is school security officers was not historically one of those categories, but if that falls under maintenance or whatever that falls under in the process. But my point is, we want to make certain that we say if we're giving $200,000 for school security, that's where that $200,000 is going and been spent for school security.
Yeah, not just for them to just take it and
Not
spend
other
it on
areas,
something
correct.
else.
Not that they would, they understand the importance of what's there, but it needs to make certain it's going to that item. Well, currently, the budget calendar that you have set before you indicates that we would review the budget and set the tax levy recommendation today, advertise it this coming weekend, and have our public hearing on May 8th.
That's not going to happen.
I have added the next calendar down on page 161, somewhere in there.
160 and 161,
Yeah.
or 160.
Yeah, 160 is the revised calendar, showing that you all complete your final review of the budget on May 8th at our next meeting. Advertise it on May 12th. We'd hold the public hearing on May 22nd, which is a day meeting, but we would come back here at 7 o'clock that night and hold our public hearing on the budget.
Now, say that again.
The public hearing
Is
would
May
be
the 22nd.
scheduled for May 22nd. and we would schedule that for 7 PM in the evening. We would do our regular business meeting during the day, and then come back that night strictly for the public hearing.
On what date?
May 22nd.
And we set the tax levy,
At the next meeting, you all would be setting what we're going to advertise.
the 8th of
The
May.
8th of May, yes, sir.
Do we need to get together before then and
Well, that's,
hash out what we're gonna?
I mean, we've hit on school resource officers, school security officers. We've talked about the school funding. We talked about the primary items. Mr. Hale mentioned, there is not money in this budget right now for borrowing another $1 million for fire trucks. If we want to look at borrowing another $1 million for fire
Have
trucks.
we heard anything back from the bond council about borrowing the whole 10 million, borrowing more money from the literary fund than what they said we could?
Our public hearing that we're having on May 8th is requesting for the full $10.1 million, but they haven't gotten final approval from DOE.
If we get that approval, how much that lowers?
It'll lower us probably, I'm guessing, another $75,000 or so, right there.
So if we added another $1 million, would that cover the debt service on $6 million instead of $5 million?
I'll run some numbers and see.
I don't mind doing if it'll cover the debt service on that.
Now, the other thing that's not in this budget that just came up last week was the discussion about $450,000, $400,000 to $500,000 worth of air packs that they didn't get their grants funded for. Now, we have already been in touch with rural development. Rural development will give up to, through Community Facilities Program, up to $25,000 to each department for that. We are working on that avenue with the fire departments to get that in there, because that at least gives us $25,000 if we could get $100,000 from the foundation to say that here's an 80-20 match on it. That at least they really want to match. They've indicated to the fire departments, the foundation's saying it's within reason to fund. It is not, it definitely needs to come through the fire departments, but they want to see a match. Mr. Hales encouraged the fire departments to see what they could come up with on their own in some manner to provide some match towards it. But my opinion is you may be coming up with a large capital cost for air packs for the fire departments or for the fire departments this upcoming year. It's not in the budget currently, and that sort of threw out a whack. If it's a matter of spending $400,000 for a truck or $400,000 for air packs to keep 4 departments up and running, we're probably going to go with air packs for the departments right now.
Yeah, but we dropped the cost, if we could get the $1 million and cut the cost of that one truck back down to where it's reasonable.
Yep.
And the other truck, we would still have the money to do that.
We could do that.
Yeah, you can do all three of those if they'd be reasonable about the truck.
Well, I mean, this is what you got.
Yeah, here's what the funding's gonna be.
Yeah, and you cut your truck down the back in a reasonable.
How does,
Corey's on the fire rescue, maybe one of the reasons we can't do anything on fire rescue is there's 4 or 5 different conversations going on, and they did make one major consent last time. It sounded like, Stephen, you were there, I think. They did come back to their reasonable amount, talking about a unified system, fire and rescue. And that was never going to happen 4 years ago.
Well, it's in their best interest if we can get grant money from FEMA by putting them together. it's a no-brainer for the rescue squads.
I think they finally seeing it.
Yeah, they said that.
I mean, this individual,
Fire department, except one.
and they can keep their individual identity. I mean, they can still, landmines, fire and rescue. I mean, Max Meadows Fire Department. I mean,
When it comes, I mean, how do they, in the past, when the county bought trucks, and I know they bought, was it Ivanhoe and Barron Springs got one at the same time?
no, well, they bought them themselves. And then we had to pay, and they come to us 3 years ago and said they couldn't pay for them.
At least
And
three,
then we
about
took
40.
money out of general fund and paid them
I thought
off.
at one time the county bought some trucks.
The county did, yes.
Yeah,
Back-
Ken bought one, the ladder truck, which Whitfield.
No, not,
No,
not,
before
I'm
that,
not talking
yeah.
about that, before that.
Yeah, the last three we bought was the Wytheville, Barron Springs, and Max Meadows trucks that we bought in about 2011, 12, somewhere in there.
But we did it, I mean, they
Yeah.
did it, I wasn't here, but
We
they
borrowed
did borrow the money. and-
$1.3 million and bought all the trucks. But prior to that, back in the early 2000s, when the infamous rotational system was in there.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking
That's,
about.
the county bought a couple trucks at that point in time. Brian, off the top of my head, I don't remember if we had some, what loans they took to get those.
Well, I'm talking about the procurement part of it, because my problem is, you know, if you want to replace two trucks, and you sit down and say, what are your specs on this truck? And then you go to Max Meadows and say, what are your specs on this truck? And you put them out to bid, you're gonna save money. Because none of these manufacturers are anywhere close to Wythe County. So if they can make one delivery and sell two trucks, I mean, that's, and I was on the fire department for a long time. American LaFrance and Pierce are the Cadillacs.
And what you've got to be very careful, because this is, I mean, I sat right there next to Martha one time, and I got chewed on pretty hard about it, but the specs were written to such a detail that only one truck would do it.
Oh, I can write a spec for a vehicle and put down, I want a crew cab truck with a such and such wheelbase and a 4-liter V6.
And only one.
And Nissan's the only one that meets it.
Yep.
But I'm talking about how many gallons of water do you want to
Yep.
haul? How many gallons per minute do you want? You know, the wheelbase in some of these stations are important.
Yep.
That's,
They just want the biggest and best.
Purchase.
Well, I guess the question is, do you want to add $1 million back in there and add $75,000 additional in debt service for trucks in this budget right now? Or do you want, to add, 400 and some $1,000 for air packs in here? I mean, that could also be something you amend and appropriate if it comes out, or
I
if
mean,
you got
if it comes down to, I mean, look at the numbers, and I'll look at it like this, look at the numbers. We can't amend and appropriate that much money for trucks, but we could take that much money out of the general fund probably and recoup it in the future, but put it back, but.
And you could wait and see what happens with the air packs, and then if that comes out to the good, then you could look at, putting out a request for proposals for borrowing the money, and you could amend and appropriate it mid-year at that time if you so wanted to.
but what if they find a decent deal on a used truck?
They ain't talked about no used truck.
Well, I think Barron Springs is starting to look.
Barron Springs just found a truck for 300.
I'm pulling it up, I couldn't remember.
I think, something like that.
Yeah.
What is it, 2002?
Hold on,
2012?
It's a 2008 for $339.
And what I don't know, they're gonna fight over fire from Route 100, because I don't know what the hell else they're gonna take it. It's too big.
When I was on the fire department, my favorite truck was the Freightliner. Because it was short, had a good turning radius, you could see out of it.
It
And
I
you
don't know.
can get it everywhere. Of course, that might be my drivability.
No, I think the fire departments need to fit their terrain. And we've got equipment now that can't fight a rural fire. They can't get up the driveway, they can't get down to where the house is. But they'll hold 6 people that can sit there and watch the fire, they can't get to it.
I mean, their fire stations is full of equipment. Where they gonna put this new truck? What they gonna get rid of?
Well, not that this is a conflict, but I'd love to have a Tahoe. And I could make a good argument about how much I have to carry in that thing. But it comes down to the sheriff ain't gonna spend that extra money. I mean, that's just,
Well, I'm worried about the air packs, and definitely.
Well, I mean, I think we can take care of that in an emergency situation if we have to. But and when did you say we might find out where we could borrow the whole 10 million from the literary fund?
I don't know when we'll know that answer. I can talk to Webster again and see what he's found out. The school system, historically speaking, they have not seen that happen, and they don't anticipate that being able to happen. They are tickled to death if it does, don't get me wrong. But historically, from what they have seen from the Department of Education, that has not happened.
Well, they put more money in it this year. I mean, well, if they ever pass a budget, they put more money in it.
It's part of the, and it's not exactly the same, but what, like Mr. Russell's talking about on the 6-year plan. If we had 10 million in the project, but now we only need 7 million, that gives $3 million left over that goes on down to the next school system. So DOE can spread that money out further, going to different school systems in the process. If everybody ahead of us took the full allotment they were originally entitled to get, we may not even be able to get our $7 million. So. Well, obviously we've got, on May 8th, we have got to set a tax rate and a tax levy. Do you want to have a work session one night next week, one evening next week, to talk any more about these items? Just like I said, I don't think we can fully fund 13 school resource officers. From looking at the budget, I think it's a concern to have as much as we're showing in there for the Apex Center for capital projects when we're trying to do a tax increase. I will also say some of that money's got to be in there because we've got to finish those internal roads and we've got to finish those parking lots. I'd love to have everything paved and paved parking lots, but it's like your Tahoe. I know we can't have it. There's things we can't afford to do. So do we leave that?
But that ain't that out of money that we've already amended and appropriated?
No. We've got about $500,000. I sent all of y'all that budget the other day of the committed funds. Okay. I will pull that back up. I brought it with me, so I had a paper copy of it also.
$584,948.
Out of the 7 million and.
Out of the 7.5 million, we've got $580,000 uncommitted. We know that about $100,000 has got to come out of that for when we do the rest of the road. We have not put that back into the contract yet. So 220 is what we took out. We've added 90,000 back in. So it should come in less than 130,000 to come in lower than what the original amount was for that whole project. So we've got that to add back in. We have, we've got the sound system to add into it as well out of that amount. The estimates on the sound system have been anywhere from $150,000 on up to $300 and some thousand. We have the, it won't be a huge expense item, but you have your phone systems to go in there and your IT systems to go in there on it also.
Did you put the lightning arrestor system on?
Lightning arrestor system, I'm still trying to find that quote, Mr. Hale. get it.
Give you company, that
It was-
was $22,700.
I was thinking it was 27,000, but yeah, I was gonna say, it was,
It can't have gone up
yeah,
that much.
no.
The copper has gone up.
but I mean, there may be some money left when it's all said and done, but,
Well, we put 10%. Contingency.
yeah. If we could sell, well, if we could sell some of the lots, we'd have to spend that money to build the road
Yep.
into it.
So we're not gonna build a road until we sell a lot.
That's sort of where we are right now. What's in the budget right now is the design for that road only. And then
It's
if we get
just around
somebody
the
interested.
expo.
Yeah.
It's not down to Chapman Road, the
It's
old
in-
pool
and-
place.
And that's in that road construction fund. But we've got to finish putting strips across the parking lot. We've got to finish the internal roads. Exterior lighting can come in much cheaper than what's budgeted in there right now. If we get the donation of those lights, and a couple of those large light poles would provide enough initial lighting to get us started right now.
I did want to ask the question, the trailers is parked on Mr. Umberger's property down there, is that, we have permission to do that?
Nope, I just found out they were located there last week, and
Just one.
just one.
Was another one come in?
There's two up there. One backed up plumb almost to the tower.
Mr.
No, it wasn't there Sunday.
No, Mr. Vaughn told me yesterday that one came in, and I didn't know anything about it. I don't know if that came from, I asked him.
That's what I was
if it
saying, 'cause
had
Mr.
camera and
Umberger's
everything
gonna
on
be
it.
here on our doorstep.
Yep, we need,
We can get it moved once.
he spread the gravel.
Did the other 3 or 4 loads get delivered? It had been knocked down, then no more stone come from the floor.
I do not know if it has been delivered, but Mr. Vaughn told me yesterday the other had been knocked down, and he was putting in a request for 3 or 4 more loads to go on back through there to get it all the way to the end. So I don't know if that was delivered today in the rain or not.
Well, what we approved and what they quoted, you made the phone call, that was for them to place the stone all the way around there.
That's correct. That was my understanding in that
While
meeting.
we've got that good deal, and we've got a deal going with the quarry delivered at $5, when that's the number,
Yes, sir.
why don't we go on around there while we're getting it that cheap?
Yep.
Before somebody wakes up and backs out.
Yep, I'd like to go the whole loop all the way around there. Yep. But anyway, there is the $580,000 left, but you've got, the sound system is the one that worries me with the cost of it the most. And Mr. Vaughn's got a rough spec ready on it to go out to bid, sort of getting proposals from people of what to put in there. We're requesting it, that they open up in June and July, I think somewhere in there is when those grants open back up.
May, September.
All right, well, I'll summarize this here.
Stephen, let's recess until, anybody have any problem on Tuesday, May the 1st? We go recess until April the 30th anyway, aren't we? Or
Actually, that's a call meeting.
That's a call meeting.
So that's.
We can adjourn and recess at the call meeting.
Huh?
We're,
On the 30th?
yeah, it's a call meeting, so we can call the order, then we can recess until the 1st.
Well, what time we gonna meet on the 1st, is what I was asking, sorry.
5 or 6.
5's good with me.
Yeah. Fine with me. I'm just letting you all know that it's the expo at the Chamber of Commerce that date, the expo over at the meeting
Yeah, but
center.
that's 3 to 6,
3 to 6, I think. Okay.
or 4 to 6.
What time we meeting, 5?
Let's make it 5:30, that'll give everybody a chance that wants to go to
Okay.
to that over there and walk around and talk to people and then come back.
What day is that, what time?
Tuesday, May the 1st at 5:30.
email.
We'll remind you Monday night.
Mr. Chairman, why don't we just go ahead and recess until the 30th, and that way we can say we'll recess to the 30th, and then we'll recess to the 1st, and that way it keeps it all going.
Does anybody have anything else to bring before the board at this time?
Since we've lost 2 members, I think we only want to take an action on this lawyer thing. Don't know how y'all feel about it, but board session, 2 people on their own job requirements. But we do have a forum.
Do you want to have Mr. Farthing come back? Do you need Mr. Farthing?
I don't think we do.
I don't think we did. We've done enough discussion. You want it back for it?
No, I still want to go with that. That's me, because it's still empty.
I'll leave it up. If you want to make a motion, make it, and we'll see if we have a second. If you don't, we'll wait till.
I think we're only muddying the water by putting it on, so I make a motion that we go ahead and hire the local group of attorneys that realize statements to the federal court is the right to do.
You have the name.
Flagstaff.
Mr. Hale, would you mind amending that to enter into negotiations for drafting an agreement with them? Would that?
Yeah, the word hire means intent to, as far as I'm concerned.
Wagstaff and Cartmill.
Intent to hire, get the word to them, move forward.
Have a second.
I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Just ask Mr. McRoberts. I don't know if I'm ready to vote. I was wanting to know why you're not ready, Mr. McRoberts.
I'm going to abstain from the vote.
You have to give a reason to abstain. It has to be a legitimate reason by the Code of Virginia. Does that, Mr. Byer, consist of a legitimate?
I'll ask you if you want a county attorney.
I don't think it is. You have to have some type of a conflict.
Well, I'm sure if we dug enough, somebody's got one.
Any more discussion?
He asked him the question, why do you not want to vote today?
I'd just like to get the rest of the board's input. I mean, with something like this important, I think that I'd rather do it in front of the whole board.
Well, you know, I can bring it up to vote, or I can't. I have that priority, authority. So let's just postpone it, and I think Corey and Brian feel better to just postpone it until Tuesday afternoon, and we'll take it up before we do any budget thing. We'll deal with this Tuesday afternoon.
Mr. Chairman, just so we're clear on that, we will have it as a meeting, not a work session, because we're planning on taking action at that meeting.
Yep, it'll be set as a meeting. Okay, is anything else? Hearing none, we'll be in recess until April the 30th at 7 p.m.